Welcome everybody. Not very many everybody today, but welcome to those who have made it on a cold evening. Thank you. So we'll start off with the usual apologies for absence.
None.
Declaration by members of any interest, pecuniary, other than pecuniary, and so on and so on and so on.
No.
Anybody? No. So I don't have any applications. A reminder that the meeting, particularly for the members of the public, that the meeting is being recorded and it will be published on the internet, and I will talk about that a little bit more further down when we get to the update on the agenda. Just before I open the public session, I think everyone who's here in the public knows from last time that we've started applying the rules, so we're doing that this time as we did it last time. I don't need to go through it all again for you. The little things that Yvonne puts out on the seats have been updated since last time, and please leave them behind afterwards. So I think at that point I can open the public session. Who would like to start off? Roger?
Could I, 3 quick points, and they will only be very quick, so I won't overdo the time.
I shall put your 4 minutes on just in case.
Thank you very much. Just like to draw the Parish Council's attention to the fact that my wife spotted in a local magazine that one of our residents in the village has won a very prestigious, prestigious award from the Worshipful Company of Tilers and Bricklayers. They apparently award triennial prizes, 3 of them, and Carl Terry has won the tiling award for this year, and I think somehow it would be nice if we could recognise the fact that he has done that, and I wondered if perhaps you might consider a letter from the Chairman of the Council to him to say that we've seen it and recognise it. They are very special awards. I looked it up on the internet today, and they are really quite special.
Thank you.
It's within, for buildings within, I should say, within the M25, so it's not a local activity, but it's
national prominence, let's say.
That is absolutely right.
Thank you. I hadn't seen that. I don't know if anybody else had, so thank you for spotting it. You had? Okay.
Secondly, just a quickie on the bus. I see it's on the 312. It's on the agenda anyway. I was talking to some ladies at the community market this morning, and there is clearly confusion around it. Somebody's run to find out. They were told they didn't. Renown didn't know anything about it, and so in typical village fashion, it'll all be round in various ways, and that was just to draw your attention to it.
Right.
And thirdly and lastly, you'll be aware that the letter I wrote as a voiceless letter to you.
Yes.
And I have received a reply. Thank you very much indeed. But I should just tell you all that there have been significant problems in moving ahead, and that I will be writing very shortly again, in all probability withdrawing the letter.
Okay.
I wrote initially.
Thank you for that information. Okay. Who else would like to say anything? I will come to your report in a moment, Joe. Is there anything from Miriam? Mary? No? Thank you.
Well,
Miriam.
The bus shelter is in a pretty bad state.
The bus shelter, right.
Whether the Parish Council has thought of doing some maintenance work on that. It's been a very long time since anything was done.
Indeed.
It's looking really shabby. It's getting the graffiti back on it. When things start looking shabby, it seems to be an invitation to people to make them even more shabby. The picnic bench on the coronation field has been vandalised. We've got a state of vandalism. I think if the Parish Council own property, I think we need to consider repairing it before it gets any worse, really.
Okay, thank you.
I would agree with the bus shelter too. I think it's beginning to fall apart in places.
It was done up, but it was quite a few years back now, and it was given a coat of paint. The tiles were repaired, the cladding was repaired, and it looked a lot better and a lot more cared for. The sign was put back in, which had been in the sign's garage, I think, for quite a time. So that's something I might consider.
Thank you. Joe, you want to give us your report? Thank you.
I don't seem to be getting much in the way of information from the police these days, and I know that there have been some burglaries in the area.
Yeah.
But that information has come from members of the public rather than from the police, where we used to get information. So I've been unable to do any sort of reassurance visits as we would have done in the past. I've dealt with quite a lot of fly tips in the area. One notable one was a lot of fridges and freezers that have been dumped down by the pumping station. That has been cleared now. I've been working also with Lee Volunteer Support Warden on the few occasions where our timetables have allowed us to meet up. And we went and did a joint visit to some residents with a view to getting a fence put up to prevent further fly tipping after having some other fly tipping removed. And other than generally being in the market on a Tuesday when I'm able to, and dealing with issues from people who have raised them there, I've dealt with signposting issues for how to get help for certain things. The lady was having a problem with a neighbour who's setting fires in the middle of the night, so signposting for help with environmental services. So she'd spoken to the housing manager and where else she can get assistance from. So that's generally what I've been doing. Again, my time's sort of rather stretched amongst all my areas that I cover, so it's just trying to do the best I can with what little time I have here.
Okay.
If anyone has any questions, or if anyone's got any issues they'd like me to have a look into or help deal with, I'm quite happy to do so.
Thank you. Does anyone have a yes, Paul?
A couple of points. First of all, obviously we've got Oliver back now. Well, I'm assuming he's still in the role. These things seem to change so quickly.
He's back, but the reason he's back is because he's taken on what the area that was covered by Dan, which means he's stretched even more thinly.
He's got 17 parishes, I think.
Because he's still got the area he was covering on top of.
So I'm assuming he's getting the reports through the police system.
I would imagine so, because
but I'm not just picking on him, but you're not getting stuff from him as well, are you? Because the reason I mention it is that over the last few months there's been a significant increase in vandalism in the village. You know, people's had their fences on the road several times vandalised. Miriam talked about the bench there. We've had individuals. That's not vandalism. That's anti-social jumping out in front of young mums in cars, and there's a lot on social media.
Actually, I did speak to. I met up with Ollie Welch here a couple of weeks ago, actually outside the village hall here, and we sort of discussed various local issues for 30-40 minutes and passed on information between each other. So that's the first time I've actually seen him to go through, to liaise with them.
It does seem that some of the individuals concerned are known to a number of people, and other people have passed those names on.
Yes, because I think it was maybe not a teacher, but someone that's staff at the school actually stopped and spoke to us while we were both outside here, and mentioned the issue that you just raised about those playing chipping the road and all that. So
it's on the radar.
Yes, it is on the radar.
Okay, thank you.
And Ollie, I think he was on late that particular day as well, so I think he was planning on sort of being out and about at the time when it was likely to happen. So he is aware of it, as am I.
We had some of the bins. I think Andrew Deeks reported one of the bins had been vandalised or moved, or
there was bits and bobs
Alf was going to concrete it in.
Oh, that was on the Coronation Field. Yes, yeah. It's all part of the same thing.
Yeah, so we do obviously liaise when we're able to, but obviously he's stretched a lot more thinly than he ever was as well. And, as we both are, the areas we now cover are much bigger than they ever were before.
And when you said you weren't getting the same sort of, I don't know, put feedback or reporting or input from the police that you used to get.
Well, we always used to have, our supervisors used to go to, and still do go to, the CSU briefings from Ashford Police Station in our case. And then we used to have information, they would phone around the wardens with information relevant to their areas. That doesn't seem to be happening anymore, and I don't know if that's because the police aren't passing on as much information, because obviously I'm aware that there have been burglaries, and that's the sort of information we used to get. And I know that there have been, because members of the public have told me. But I haven't had that from the route that I used to get that information. So, but maybe I'll take that back to my supervisor and find out if they can inquire and find out why that information is no longer coming down the line to us.
Okay.
We could do the same, go to Paul Lindsay, the contact we've got.
Sure. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, ask Yvonne to talk at her level as well.
Topic of vandalism, the sports club goals, the football club's goals were vandalised twice. The second time, the culprits were seen doing it. I pursued them and caught them, and I had all their names. And I am still waiting for Oliver Welch to contact me. I was promised by the officers that rang me up that they would be in touch to pursue this, and I haven't heard a word. So in fact that you actually pursue these individuals and they admit what they've done and caused a lot of damage twice. I'm not sure it was them the first time, but you but with nothing at all. If they had the information, I've rung up 3 times and promised that someone would come and speak to me about it. So the culprits haven't been visited or anything at all.
Again, I can't comment on.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying there is a breakdown in the system, because members of the public, I was straight onto the phone. I was expecting a pretty rapid response, but in fact, nothing at all.
Okay.
He has been on leave because I sent an email to him and it came back an automatic on annual leave. So that probably a week out of it, but that's all.
The system should be able to respond
It should.
much more quickly, and just because of course the PCSO's on leave shouldn't mean to say there's a complete breakdown in the system.
Okay.
And you've actually got the culprits.
So we recognise it.
101.
Yep.
So as far as I'm aware, that should then mean that the task is disseminated to the nearest officer that's on duty that can deal with it. So it shouldn't make any difference.
Obviously not working very well.
The local one's on leave, but again, it depends how stretched they are and
Okay.
the jobs they have, unfortunately.
All right. Well, I think if you agitate as best you can, Joe, and we've also got that point. I suspect it is really quite hard. We can poke them with a stick, but it's quite hard to get much out of them at the minute. Alan.
Thanks, Joe. With the kit that was deposited at Blackwall the other day, and I went past and saw there were a lot of fringes used. Is there any pointed resources allowed of forensics going down to look at that, to get fingerprints in case the miscreant performs again?
I'm not sure that fingerprints would work because it wouldn't necessarily pinpoint it to who's dumped it there, because most of them, the fact that there were numerous fridges and freezers is probably someone with a van who's collected from various people and dumped them, claiming that he's going to dispose of them correctly and hasn't. So there's going to be fingerprints of the previous owners who maybe have thought they were disposing of them in good faith.
Well, they weren't really, were they? It was all 10 quid and take it away.
They look like some of them commercial premises.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, one of them looked like
glass fronted and
Okay.
So I don't know, and obviously because they've been out there, anyone could have walked around and touched them as well. So I don't think the police.
Evidentially,
if they've done it once, they're quite likely to do it again. And the same, you might just.
Yeah, because it's quite isolated and there's nobody there to sort of witness someone doing it. Obviously, if anyone does see someone doing it, number plate.
Well, that's where Miriam was. Okay, let's.
Sorry. Miriam, I have Ollie's email address, which you didn't want sent round to everyone, but I will mention the fact that you're waiting for response.
That I made with the Kent Police. They say you can go online and get the name of your PCSO, but there's no contact.
No.
So it's a complete waste of time, really. We used to be given the mobile.
Yes, I don't have anything for him apart from that.
Haven't got anything like that. It's as if everything's at arm's length now. We haven't got that sort of. On the end of the line, I'll get down to Wittersham.
Indeed.
But I will do that. See if we can.
Can I just make a comment on the online?
response.
Because I was going to report it later on, but it's relevant now. The online system, which was introduced about 3 months ago, has had a few hiccups and it's gone offline. And I was all set to write a short piece to put in the outline.
Indeed.
But there's no point in putting it in if it's not working. I did manage to report the theft from our property on it. I don't know if that ever came through to you. That was a sort of, you know, the trial run a couple of months ago we had, and that was reported, and I got a case number, and which was fine. So I did get a response 24 hours later saying, thank you very much, but as there's no evidence, we can't do anything about it. And I think the case number was their assumption I was going to claim from the insurance company. But the system did work in terms of response. Then I tried after the last meeting to sort of test it out and see what information was there, and the system is down. I've gone back every 3 or 4 days, and it's still down. I'm not sure that would actually still provide with direct contact, but
no, I think
it's all a bit.
It's an
yeah,
alternative
but it's
to phoning 101s that you can report.
Yeah,
That's what it was designed for. I don't think it's going to.
Well, I'll keep pursuing it and let people know when it's back up again.
Okay. Has anyone else got anything else to say before I close the public session? No? Okay, thank you very much indeed. So we'll move on then to confirm the minutes of the last meeting. Does anyone have any queries or corrections on the first page, 727?
No.
Second one? No. Third one? 728, 729. Right through to the end, is it all right? Can I then take it that we're all agreed with them? And I can sign them?
Yes.
Good, thank you. It's a bit scratchy.
Oh, I do apologise.
I'm just thinking it wasn't writing very well, you see.
That's good enough.
Good enough. Good, right. Okay, so minutes are done. Now we get on to matters arising. First one is good news, the village green sign. Some of you may have noticed that Alf has stripped off all the peeling paint and repainted it very nicely and redone the bit at the top.
We're on a different sign again.
This is the village green
The
sign.
Village green
do,
sign.
Well, I do this every time.
You
village
do,
sign.
don't you?
Yes. Okay, so we're on the other side. Right.
It's still
fair
good
enough.
news.
Yeah, it is good news. As the village green sign
Excuse
is
me.
concerned, the boulder, also known as the rock,
That's
it got delivered and it got put in and they put their sign on, and it is being tapped in, as apparently the wording is, on Thursday, which Miriam and George have arranged between them. I shall aim to be there. I hope some of the others of you may manage to do it.
Yes.
I'm hoping it won't be raining.
It's in the diary.
Good.
Even if it's raining, we'll still be doing it.
Even rain? No, that's because you're an outside person.
I'll bring you an umbrella.
Oh, good. Yes, okay. I shall take
So
that
yes,
away.
we're hoping we publicised it around the village as well, and I put it on next door, and no, you put it on next door. I put something else on next door. As well. And
And it's been leafleted, I think.
Miriam did some leaflets
Good.
as well, and the school are going to send some young people and either the head or a teacher as well. So I think it's going to.
And you're
fine.
going to
We're coming back here afterwards for refreshments.
And you're going to bring your camera.
I'll bring my camera, and Miriam's already sorted some with the camera as well. So
Good.
we're there, I think, just about.
Good. And who is organising, if it needs organising, Mavis? I mean, is she making her own way there?
Assume.
Miriam presumably knows if that's all right.
Yeah.
Helen and Paul Lyon are bringing them.
Oh, right. Okay. Okay, nice to see them again. Okay, anything else to say on village green sign update? The correct village green sign? No. Volunteer support warden. We're getting closer. It's taking a long time. Lee Phelan spent a day last week training with the full-time warden in Lid, Joanna, who used to be a volunteer, which Joe here also knows about, of course. And another day with someone else has been put in her diary, I think. The uniform is on order. It's been on order for a while. KCC seem to be exceptionally slow at every stage of this process. Luckily, because I think we're all taking an interest in Lee's progress, she is still on side and keen. I think in any other circumstances, we wouldn't have seen her for dust for the last 6 months, which is probably why they have very few. Not helpful, but anyway, hopefully we're nearly there, and I do think it will be very helpful, partly because, of course, she's on good communicating terms with Alf, so they can.
Can I ask who the KCC member is responsible for?
Mike
Okay.
Mike Hill is responsible. He's cabinet member for community somethings, and it includes this. That's why he was fighting to keep it. And indeed persuaded them to have the volunteer service, but they've only brought in about 4 volunteers this time, and you can see why. Shame.
Right, can I?
Of course, please.
I've received a letter from Paul Linstead. I'm writing to you to confirm that following the successful recruitment of a volunteer support warden for your area, your new VSW has completed their initial training with the Kent Community Warden Service. They have demonstrated a good understanding and commitment to the role, and we will now be issuing them with the rest of their uniform and equipment. Well, I contacted Lee today. She doesn't have her uniform, as Chairman's just said.
What's the date of that one?
This is 18th of October.
Okay, right.
And as far as she's concerned, she hasn't
right.
actually completed her training.
No.
She's still
So I was
having.
asking what the date is.
Yes. I'm contacting you to arrange for your council's contribution towards the VSW cost. Your new volunteer, Lee Phelan, has been in training since the start of August. We have therefore not charged the full annual costs and have calculated the costs over a 6-month period until the end of March 2018. The total cost for this year will be £782.50, which includes their uniform and equipment, as well as their mobile phone and expenses costs to the end of the year. The full cost for next year, 2018-19, will be £585. Payment. In order for KCC to invoice your organisation for the costs of your VSW shown above, please email Joe Shaw with a valid purchase order number, including contact details for invoicing purposes. If you would like to discuss this further or have any concerns in reference to payment, please feel free to contact me.
I think we should spend 6 months replying to that.
It's a bit rich, really, because it wasn't September clearly to March. It starts off, we have successfully recruited someone. Well, that's what they said the first time after we'd lined one up for them. I don't think the original estimate was at 700, but it was certainly several hundred, but I think it was less than that. Although on the other side, I do remember that the pilot, which we didn't get into because we didn't have one, was always going to be cheaper than the subsequent one. Anyway, the key is really that if they would only do their bit, we would get on and get some value from it. I do think that, as I say, it's a bit rich to be invoicing from September when she hasn't even got her uniform yet. And it's a bit like a police officer without a warrant. She can't really do much without it. So whether or not we agree to pay it, and we probably should for various reasons, I think it's reasonable at least to make that point, if people agree. That we're disappointed that they have not managed to get the thing rolling.
I think we should argue the case that she hasn't been actually in post and operational in that period of
Because
time.
they haven't done the work.
And not only that, as of tonight, she still isn't.
No.
Indeed. Okay, well, let's do that then.
And hasn't got a uniform.
Yeah, indeed. Since 18th of October, and we're now on the 14th of November.
Precisely.
4 weeks. I mean, it is hopeless.
Do you want to put in there that we, anything like so that we would anticipate you delivering everything and completing? Let's put the onus on them by let's say the first of December launch.
Yeah, and we'll look forward to
and we
that.
look forward to the pro rata invoice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
something
okay.
like that. Words to that effect. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Okay.
Do we have to give you a purchase order number?
We don't have them, do we?
Of course we do.
Really?
Sorry, get a grip.
Yes, this is not acceptable.
That was.
I've lost my drift now.
Well, to complete the sentences, they might well send us an invoice. We might well take 6 months to pay it. You know.
Okay.
Yes,
I'll ask
that's.
for a pro rata. I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, they've offered the pro rata. It's just they pro rated it to a date that isn't really very fair.
Precisely.
But you see, they're taking it from when she's been in training, not since when she's been actually, fully trained and working as such. And she's obviously incurred expenses because she's been to training. She's been to the original training plus first aid,
Sure.
so there have been expenses incurred as
That
well.
took 3 months to get organised.
Indeed. The first aid was about August, I think. That was the first thing that happened.
So,
worth a
what do you
try, I
actually?
Is there a similar experience in the other 3 parishes?
I don't know what the
We don't
other.
know who they are, but I presume so. I mean, what Lee was held up for initially was that they wouldn't organise the first aid training until they'd got the others all organised, because they obviously wanted to do them together. They then did it for about 4, of which one didn't turn up. And it's gone on like that. The DBS, they wouldn't put the DBS in until they'd got all of them ready to do. Whereas it doesn't really matter, they can do them all individually.
Yeah.
Everything has been delayed.
What if we asked for a breakdown of that £782.50?
Well, you could. It's a bit of an irritant from their point of view. But the key really, as some of the councillors have said, is that you're right to say they're going to charge for the training, which isn't prorated, and the expenses, which aren't prorated. The uniform isn't prorated. Of course, they're 3 big bits. Maybe the rest of it doesn't add up to very much.
So what are we arguing
Maybe
about,
the person
really?
writing the letter doesn't realise that these things haven't been delivered. There isn't.
Well, I went.
It's
Remember, I
Paul
went
Insted
to
who
him.
signed it, isn't it?
Yes.
He's sort of manager.
Yeah, it's because
Can I just adjourn briefly, because Joe would like to make a point.
Can I just make a point that I believe from my supervisor's point of view that they were quite happy that Lee had enough training to be able to go out and do it, and with the tabard and the ID badge and the phone, she has enough equipment without the full uniform in order to be able to do the task. But I believe that she actually requested to have further days out with other wardens for her benefit.
She felt that her training had been a bit skimpy, to be honest.
More,
I mean, that's partly because you'd had your back injury, so you couldn't do it. The supervisor who was supposed to give her training in place of you just came and gave her the tabard and went away again, I believe. And that's where we got to the point of her going out with Joanna in Lyd.
Yeah. And I think she's got
which has been helpful.
2 separate wardens.
Yeah, there's some more lined up.
So
Yeah.
that's good.
It doesn't really help when you've taken someone on as a volunteer starting from base to say, well, you just get on with it. She really should have some on-the-job training, and 2 or 3 days is not unreasonable. So where do we?
The other thing with the uniform, I think the reason they wanted to delay giving out the rest of the uniform was when they did the pilot, they had a number of wardens started, they issued all
and then
the
didn't.
uniform, and then they didn't.
Yes, I did mention that.
Make sure that people
Understand.
actually continue to do it rather than issuing all the expense of all the uniform.
Okay.
So uniforms in stock. I mean,
No, it has to be ordered. I mean, I know from when I need new uniform, I ordered some new shirts quite a few weeks ago, and it'll probably be quite a few weeks, if not months, before they come. So it does take a long time for the uniform, unfortunately.
Okay, let's start the meeting again then.
thank you.
So, given all that we've heard and all that we've talked about ourselves, what do we want the clerk to write? To just pay up and suck it up, as they say, or to... I mean, because I suppose a lot of it is not pro-ratable, we may actually be making a fuss over what doesn't really matter. We haven't got the value of the money.
At least we could just point out what's been completed and what still has to be completed, including the uniform, and actually put in there, could you please advise us of the delivery date? And that, whether they come back and say we don't know, or...
So in effect express disappointment that it's taken so long. She still hasn't got the uniform that was supposed to be organised a month ago, and she's still doing some of her training, but meanwhile, here's your order number, and etc. etc.
Yeah. So
and as Paul says, we could do with an expected date. The other thing to bear in mind is that I was talking to Jo Weatherly yesterday. She is the staff officer to Mike Hill, who's the cabinet member, on another matter, namely the bus, which we'll get to. And I did say that while I was talking, I did think it would be useful for him to know that this has been inordinately slow, and if he's getting reports to the contrary, he should know that. It's not been a good performance at all by some of the officers in Maidstone.
I think it's also worthwhile raising that if you were assessing the risk of this, there's only so long that a volunteer will put up with before they go, you know what, they're not interested in me.
I know.
And I think
Well,
it's
I think
worth
we've
pointing
gone
out
past that.
well, luckily we've got someone who seems to be.
Well,
in it
we've
for the
kept her
long
going.
haul.
Yeah.
But
Well, I
think
have
it's
already
worth
said
pointing out-
that once. I've
Well,
already said that.
Has she received the DBS confirmation?
Oh, she's had,
Yeah,
yes,
she's had-
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, she said when
She's
we got
got a
the,
DBS already.
Yeah.
We're in this position where she has to have two for different people. She's DBS'd for the nursery school.
transportable.
yes, you see, before I said she came away from the initial training all fired up and ready to go, but that will wane fast if she isn't actually doing anything. So I've already gone.
I think
down
we need
that
to up
road.
the ante and say we now believe there's a serious risk we're going to lose this person. Because there will be. You know, if it goes on.
She
and on and on.
recruited July, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it's worthwhile
Well,
stating
she was actually tapped on the shoulder by me back at Christmas because we were given a deadline to get on and put the name in.
Yeah.
And I think maybe we pass it on to Mike and say, look, this is going to
Well,
collapse.
that's it.
Yeah, but put it in writing. Okay, formally put that in there. Maybe CC.
I didn't want it in
letter.
writing. To be honest, I didn't want it in writing. I wasn't trying to take on the officers. I was trying to
No,
warn
no.
Mike that he should be aware
Well,
that
I
it's
think,
tricky.
yeah. Well, I think you would respond by saying we now believe there's a serious risk we're going to lose this volunteer if this matter's not resolved with immediate effect. Because if she does walk and what have you, and the adult doesn't want to do it anymore, at least we've stated that we anticipated that there was a potential risk. We've done all we can.
Okay, well, we'll leave Yvonne to try and work out what she can say along those lines.
Yep.
Okay, let's move on. The next one is the update on the recording of the PC's meetings. As you know, we record them. Last time we resolved to put them online, and we are doing that. The problem for people to know, you to know, and the members of the public to know, is that there has been a technical problem, and we don't know what it is yet. We are going to be looking at replacing this computer, which is now exactly 5 years old and is struggling with being fast enough for modern Windows and the processing requirements necessary to handle the audio files. John spent 5 hours last week trying to get them uploaded onto YouTube, and it's thrown a wobbler and we don't know why. I've talked to someone else, my brother-in-law, who uploads his perfectly well, and he's suggested a different system which John is going to try. If that doesn't work, then what I would like us to agree is that we will go out and find somebody who will have to pay for it. I'm reluctant to keep asking John to spend a lot of his time trying to fix it for us when he is trying to find the answer that other people will know the answer. There must be one, because we know YouTube has very long sound files on it, but it kept saying that it wouldn't accept this file of, and these are not very long by comparison.
Too big.
Yeah, it kept saying it was
There
too
are
big.
clever people in the village who do computers.
Yeah, indeed. So if people are happy, then that's what we'll do if John doesn't manage it next time. But we've also got to come to the computer later. So that's why I'm sorry to say I had expected them to be done by now. They are not. We simply can't get it done. But as soon as it is done, it will be there and people can listen to them. At the moment, it's in the lap of the gods, as it were. It's beyond our ability to simply wave the magic wand. And we're going to talk about the laptop later. SIDS, further possible grant support. We've talked before about hoping to get some grant support for SIDS, the speed indicator device, from KCC, and we're also asking ABC through our ward councillor here, who is aware. And I think you have sent the form in, or have you still?
No, I put it down here so that we can formally say that we're going to ask.
Right. Okay.
So
we're going to formally.
Can I do I have to email and ask for it, or will you let me have
You've
that?
got to send me the form. Have you got the form?
No, I haven't got a form.
I'll send you one.
Thank you.
You have to send it back to me.
Yes.
Okay. Good. That's progress. So that's SIDS grant support. Thank you. The next one is the councillor vacancy. The first thing, good news, no election was demanded by the 10 residents who can petition for one. So that saved us the potential cost there. The council has a policy for co-option, which is in your folder. and that will therefore apply on the co-option version as opposed to the election version. Notices, I think, are on the notice board and have been for a bit.
Notice board, website and Facebook.
Facebook, yeah, good, thank you. We're going to have an advert in the December-January Outlook, which has got to be done by tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay, good. Now we've got to think about the deadline for expressions of interest. The thing is, we're treading the same ground as a couple of years ago, aren't we? And not when you came on, but when Colin and David did. I think that was over Christmas.
No,
wasn't
it was last year.
Was it last year? We certainly had one at Christmas time. Oh yes, you're right. The other one was at the election.
We were in there. Yeah.
Yes. So if we are to have any hope of managing to do a co-option decision in January meeting, then I suggest we ought to have people making their expressions of interest in the first few days of January. It'll be in Outlook in December, but on the other hand, we know no one really thinks of anything over Christmas or before Christmas. So
Presumably you haven't got anybody putting their head above the parapet.
No one has come forward to me.
No one's
No.
come forward at this point. No. We may, and we can discuss later. We may have the odd thought as to someone that might be poked with a stick to see if they can be persuaded, which has been known in the past. But ultimately, they have to put themselves forward. I mean, all one can do is say, "Have you thought of how exciting it would be to be a parish councillor for your local community?" And funnily enough, some people think it would be. So, do you think that if we suggest the meeting will be on Tuesday, the 9th of Jan? So I think we probably need to aim for getting expressions of interest in by about the 3rd of January or the 4th of January.
Yes.
Let's make it closer.
The trouble is we come back to New Year and Christmas and people are not thinking beyond. I don't think people, as a matter of course, generally, unless you're much more organised than the ones I know and me, people don't think beyond Christmas. You sort of get through Christmas and then take a deep breath and start again.
What I did with this one was to invite people that were thinking about it to come to this meeting so that they could see what we did. Last year, I invited them to the wine and nibbles first.
All right, you're right.
So we could have a chat, but I'm not sure that anybody did, but that's what we did last year so that they can see.
But I mean, Colin's expression of interest was quite late on in the piece. It was in January. Yours was earlier, I think.
I think you kindly invited us to the wine and nibbles, but I don't think I could come.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So Paul's point is that it's tight, but the alternative to that is that we let it run on till February.
Well, hopefully we'll have a rush over Christmas.
A New Year resolution.
Obviously, if we
maybe
do,
not in this area.
obviously there is a fallback position. If we put in a deadline of the 3rd of January, which is 6 days before the council meeting, and we don't have any, then it just rolls over
on
till
anyway,
the next
doesn't
month.
it? That's probably the best thing.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll say 3rd of January.
Friday the 5th.
Okay, all right, Friday
the Friday the 5th.
Friday the 5th.
Yeah.
Okay, Friday the 5th. That'll do me.
We talked about, obviously putting an ad in and what have you, but I think that, and I sort of drafted something up as my suggestion on this, which was if we see a glimmer of possible interest, I think it'd be useful to have something that we could pass over as sort of a summary of what we do,
Indeed,
something
you
a
did
bit
mention
more than
Didn't
the
I
ad.
forward all that? You asked me for things that we've done before, and was it just you I sent it to? Nobody else?
I remember seeing Paul's, and you did send me the
I sent
and
what we
something
did.
else.
I've
The
got
papers you put out, yes.
Yes, when we had an election, I had a whole sort of 3-page thing of exactly what parish council does. So I've got that.
You have done that,
Well,
yeah.
I kind of looked at that, and also I'd sort of, in the spirit of good plagiarism, looked at other parish councils around the country and put together something that was a little bit shorter than that, which was to really kind of try and market it, get someone's interest going. But I think we do need, whatever it is, I think we need to maybe update that or so that if we do get a glimmer of notice, because then you can say, can we send you something? Right?
Yeah, well, that's
because
the
to
idea.
really jump from maybe to
Well, if there's
going to
something
turn
that-
up for
yeah.
duty,
Well, that's why I come to the meeting. If you come to a meeting, you see what it's all about.
If there's
high risk strategy.
Why not?
if there's something you could do in terms of a sort of recruitment pitch and put to
Yeah.
on, that would not.
Well, that was what I was trying to do.
Yeah. Well, feel free.
Can you pass that note on to? Did I circulate?
I think you got it.
Or was it just you?
I don't remember.
I certainly got it. I think you did, but maybe not.
I will dust it
again.
off and send it to everybody so that we've got. And
Okay.
Feel free to.
I thought it was
If you tick it.
I thought it was a proposal rather than an actual draft, wasn't it?
It was
Whatever.
I'm not sure what I understand the difference in. But look, I tell you what. Why don't I just send it around everyone?
Yeah. We all know what we're supposed to be doing.
That'd be good.
No, please don't be under any misunderstanding. It is not aimed at councillor retention. You know, once you're in, you're in.
No,
it's aimed at trying to entice and attract people into it.
We're only filling the spaces, not stopping them arising. Okay,
Right,
so you'll do that,
Yeah.
and we've got the 5th of January settled for our first shot anyway. Okay, so that's councillor vacancy. That's the matters arising. So then the next one is the church perimeter wall, where it's been a matter of trying to lever out more.
Yes,
quotes.
which I haven't got
You
yet.
haven't come in, but you've
No.
had a visit with someone, haven't you?
No. Well, I've only got the first one, but I'm
Yeah.
working on 2 others, but I haven't got anywhere yet.
Okay. So that's just rolling over. Considering the quotes reducing the heights of the hedges around the green and Coronation Fields, before we look at the quotes, just before, otherwise I'll forget it, Miriam made a good point earlier about the need to do up the bus shelter. When we did our councillor visit, we did observe the bus shelter being in a poor state, and we did recognise, we didn't go much further with it, but we recognised that it was a project we needed to get back to. So you're pushing an open door, as the saying goes, Miriam. We do know we've got to do it. We haven't actually taken the steps of doing it yet. We were also concerned, of course, about I recall about the fly tipping that was going on behind it as well, and we thought of the two
Littering.
It's quite a lot of money though, isn't it? It's quite an expensive option.
It is going to cost a bit, yes.
We can afford it, can we?
Well, we could have it tiled
We
by
have
our
to.
tiler, couldn't we? Very smart.
Championship time.
Yeah, championship tiling.
Right. Okay, so as far as the key thing on the agenda is concerned, to consider the quotes, you've been seeking them as
Yes,
well.
I have got somewhere with those.
Good.
I have seen two people. The first one, Oxney Land Services. Did approach them last time, but they never came back to me, so we didn't get very far. But this time, I did meet both Rob and John Sills, Rob Homewood and John Sills, and took them round. They suggested it was something they could do, not a problem, and they've come up with £800 plus VAT, of course. So that was that one, and then I went to Greenleaf Tree Care, which are the people that cut it down last time. They're both in the village, obviously. And they have come up with £1,050. However, when we were going round, they noticed, which I must admit I hadn't seen before, that the hedge that goes round behind the War Memorial, where it comes up to the sign, we've got the road sign on the corner, just above the wall, within the hedge is a wire mesh, which only a section of it. Have you spotted it before? Only, obviously, you won't be able to take the hedge straight through it because it's above the level that we want to go down to. So what they're saying is that they would be able to angle grind through it to bring it. So hence the extra cost. Whereas the other people hadn't, I don't think. Exactly. So that's probably the price difference.
£200 for a little bit of fence.
That needs doing. You can't sort of go.
Exactly, yeah.
And having had the experience of trimming a hedge and discovering a sheep fence in it,
It's not a good thing to do.
no, yes, the chainsaw reacted poorly.
And round at the gate, where we've got the gate, and the part of the
Thank
gate
you.
comes round still into the hedge. But they were both quite happy to be able to cut through that to make it level, so that wasn't going to be a problem.
Right.
But this other is a different sort of mesh.
The green leaf people, they did it last time.
Thanks, Mary.
Yes.
Right.
And they did a good job. So we know,
Yeah, we know they're okay.
yeah. I mean, to my mind, the fact they spotted it is credit to them. The fact they've come up with a solution, which frankly we need to have that done. I think if it's going to be done, it's going to be done
Silly,
properly.
wouldn't it?
They're known quantity. They did it last time. They've spotted it. They've come up with a solution. It's a bit more expensive, but I think you should just tell them to get on with it.
The other thing is that this is, of course, a significant size of bill, but we would, in any case, be hiring someone to cut the hedge anyway, like we did last time. And secondly, part of the benefit of bringing it down lower is that Alf is in a better position to do it in the future.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I would recommend we go ahead with it.
So fine, good, thank you very much. We're going for the more expensive one, but the reason being that it includes extra work.
Yes.
And they've said they're taking all the stuff away.
Yes, that was part
That's
of
the other
the
thing they've got to do. Good, thank you. Now we're on to the laptop computer. Well, as I mentioned earlier, this one is exactly 5 years old, from November 2012. It is, in John's mind, just not up to being able to cope with the several updates of Windows since then.
very slow now.
Processing the sound files to export them is slow anyway, but in this case it is very, very slow. It's almost grinding to a halt. The other thing is, of course, that you need to keep updating the Windows and the rest of it to maintain security.
Yes.
The thing shouldn't collapse, but on the other hand, there's always a risk as it gets. Well, there's always a risk, but there's a risk as it gets older. So I don't think. I mean, a lot of people replace them after 3 years. We've got 5 years out of it. They do cost more now, although Yvonne has pointed out that there is Black Friday coming along, so that may be an opportunity. So long as is it Black Friday?
Yeah.
So long as they're not only putting discounts on the crap that they want to get rid of. John has suggested we ought to be trying to get something like an i7 and a similar size screen. This is an HP, and whether it really counts for much now, I don't know, but HP is at least a sort of a known brand.
Have we any idea of the cost?
I think we're probably talking about 750 or something in that area. 750, 800. I was looking on Currys, which has not got much in that line, and on Amazon, and they're in the sort of 750, 800 for an i7 with a terabyte of disk space and what have you. And that size, I think that's a 15-inch screen.
I think the key thing is to always make sure you're buying ahead. It changes so rapidly. It's always difficult.
You've got a future.
I've been caught out in the past of going with something, and then you find out that it's not fit for purpose. And I think what you need to do is say, right, we're here, we're now. This is what we're trying to do now. In 2 or 3 years' time, we might be wanting to do visual recording or mapping, or you need to build some sort of future-proofing to it. So I think you need to make sure it's a reasonable spec, both in terms of storage is not so much a big challenge these days because you can cloud store and get external, but it's actually the whole processing bit and the ability to take on board software updates. That's the thing that scuppers everyone, is when good old Microsoft decides to do this, that, and the rest of it, and not to patch and preserve the old stuff.
Indeed.
Yeah, see, I did go through PC World's ones, and there was an HP Pavilion.
900, yeah.
How much was that?
That was 900. So can we suggest then that it'll be a matter, and of course the other thing is that even just HP has got a list like this.
Yeah. There's so many different for the other Pavilion, and that'd be fine. That's probably about 3 years old now. And I found that recently.
This is Pavilion.
Yeah, I found that my 3.5 years, it's getting really quite slow now.
Yeah, but Pavilion is almost the HP brand. They're not all Pavilions, but an awful lot of them are.
Yeah.
Could we just agree a budget, maybe? I'd say up to
I think we do need to upgrade.
Yeah, thank you.
I think it's essential at this stage if we're going to be effective.
Yeah. So shall we say then that with the aim not to spend it all, but we'll agree 1,000 potentially and look for the right balance beneath it?
Yes, I would agree.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
One bit, you might also, I don't know what plans you would have on the software side of it, but the days of buying software, you know, I think licensing it and buying on a subscription basis certainly worked out for us being much cheaper. You know, because sometimes if you go and want to buy the whole single dancing off the shelf in the box and you're not a student or there's no deals, can be inordinately expensive.
Yeah, no, never
Well,
done
apart
that.
from the Microsoft suite, Yvonne, you've got LibreOffice.
Yeah, it's got LibreOffice.
Which is free, and I don't think you've got anything else. Well, you've got your payroll stuff on the other machine.
Yes, on the PC.
You pay for that.
Yeah, PC. Yes, the software, the payroll software is
So
on
actually,
PC, but not on
Can you
this
put that
one.
on that, the payroll stuff? Will we make it easier?
No,
to
no,
have it
it's
all on one machine?
yeah, no, it's no. I'm better on the
Fine. Okay.
PC.
Okay.
It's much.
I suggest if possible extended warranty.
Yeah.
We could say extended warranty might make sense,
Yeah.
just in case.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, 3 to 5.
I haven't done this.
Okay.
David's not here.
Right.
You can twist it out.
Okay. Thank you. Progress reports from councillors on voices reports. What you'll find on what I gave out earlier, I only managed to print these. I was having a glitch with the printing, but I only managed to print them out just before I came out. So they're on single-sided. That was the thing that didn't get sorted when I solved the other the other glitch. The bits that I've just changed based on what I wrote down last time are where you see things in bold italics. So, for instance, under 1.3, FilmSoft rep will deal with Move as it's in their locked cupboard, which George told us last time. Twitter, I believe after our discussion last time, no longer regarded as the right way forward, as the PC's closed Facebook page, the Nextdoor community and the PC's YouTube channel, when we've got it, will improve communications. Now, mobile phone coverage, this is an important one. And one that Mick will want to listen to carefully, unless you already know. I spoke to Harlequin today to get an update on where they were, because if you remember, the two applications have both been withdrawn. The original one that was not verified by Mr. Bax, and then the one in Acton Lane that I made the fuss about. As I had sort of partly feared, they've said that Telefonica have withdrawn their instructions and they're not going ahead with a mast in Wittersham on the basis of that having been turned down twice, they can't be bothered to keep trying. I had a useful conversation with the Harlequin man, the contractor. He sent me the details, the contact details, which is by email, of their community facing department, which I can write to make representations if you give me the approval to do so, and basically saying we need a mast, which Harlequin have confirmed. We've got a very solid case for needing one. We can write to point out that we actually supported it and we had no residents kicking up. It was only Ashford that screwed it, and that we're very disappointed that they should have retired hurt, and you know, it's not helpful. So if you give me the approval, I will certainly do something along those lines. My feeling, subject to councillors agreeing or not, is that I think that you ought to go to Ashford, deliver them a couple of well-chosen kicks, and point out that they should also be writing to Telefonica a mea culpa and saying, look, the Owley site is perfectly good and we just wish you'd reinstate that application.
Could you just define the two sites precisely for me? There was the one on top of the other one that was in the wood.
Well, it wasn't in the wood, it was next to the wood. Next to the wood. The
It
one that
seems
was
to be too near the wood.
Yeah, the one, well, Bax said you can't have it that near the wood, but when I talked to the joint planning manager, he said if it's not under the canopy, I'm okay with it.
Right.
But because by that time Bax had refused the first one, he wouldn't even verify the application was legit, and moved it to Acton Lane, which is what he recommended, and you didn't like it, I didn't like it, none of the guys here liked it, none of the residents liked it. I spoke to the joint planning manager after you'd said that was the person to talk to, and persuaded him that he needed to go and look at it because we were going to have a complete balls up on our hands, at some point of which they then were persuaded to withdraw their application as being unacceptable. What they have not done is gone back to the first one, and Telefonica have said, well, we've made 2 applications through you, we can't be bothered to do any more. No, I think that is a big blow for the village, who need what will be better. O2 and Vodafone will be on that mast. Get better communications on those 2. This is a screw up made in Ashford. I'm irritated by it. I think other people will be. I mean, if you think I have to write to Ashford, then just tell me who to write to. But if you can take it back more quietly, it's all to the good.
Let me do a little bit of investigating and I'll come back to you.
Yeah. The guy whose name I've now forgotten, the joint planning manager that's not Lucy, Oliver, he was, when I spoke to him from, because I was with Yvonne doing the agenda that evening, when I spoke to him, he was fine. He said he understood the issues and he would go and look at it, have to talk to Bax, but he saw, every reason to put it back where it should have been.
Because it wouldn't be up to Bax to validate it.
No.
Validate it, actually.
He refused to validate it, apparently.
Well, why did it come to us? Why did it wouldn't come to us if it wasn't validated?
No, it came to us as the preliminary.
Yeah.
It came to us as the preliminary that they put through to us before they actually applied.
We had a proper planning application for both.
There's a number, didn't
Yeah.
there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, because that's been withdrawn.
But then when it disappeared,
It just disappeared.
And you rang them and asked them.
No, I
think.
didn't. No, I don't ring
They
them.
said it hadn't been. Well,
No.
someone told me it
No.
hadn't been validated.
So we need to know what's happening anyway.
It was
Moving
devalidated.
forward again.
We do indeed.
I'll see what I can find out.
Okay. But I will meanwhile, if councillors are happy, I will meanwhile, unless you want to find out first and let me know, and then I can write after that.
Well, if you get fed up with waiting for my answer, you can write a letter.
Okay. Are people happy that if it comes to it, I can then write to
Yes.
Need it moving,
Telefonica's
need
lot?
it moving forward.
Good. The question of the sports club lease, I've said, is no longer on the agenda. I mean, that's an issue for the landlord. It's nothing to do with us. He no longer expects to be leaving it to us. I don't know if he's changed his will, but that's no longer relevant for the Voices report. Increase awareness of publicly owned spaces. Well, we've got branding on our task list, so that sweeps that up. And engage younger members of the community. We've got the youth club proposals that George is.
I've heard
hoping.
nothing from
This is your granddaughter and someone else.
the ladies since
It's
they
not,
were
of
at this
course,
meeting actually.
Yeah,
2
they
meetings
were.
ago.
It's of course not the
That was
season to have youth clubs so much in mind. Maybe it being that, or maybe it is right through the winter.
Bit of both.
Okay, does anyone have anything to add to those? Otherwise you've got them to go away with and come back with anything you want me to update.
I've just mentioned the CCTV piece and the speed indicators because it's on later on, but that sort of relates, they're sort of connected on that. The 2 parts of that. On the CCTV bit, I sort of slowed down on the funding bit because we didn't want to get conflated with SIDS.
Yeah, sure.
And the idea was that we want to get SIDS in place first of all. I'm still getting I'm still trying to gather together some meaningful information. It seems that certain communities throughout the land have done things in different ways and at vastly different prices, vastly different costs, sorry. But at the moment it's about gathering relevant information. But it is interesting to hear from Joe and others that, that to a certain extent, your point about the bridges, without evidence, without something to go on, the police just can't do anything. The advantage of CCTV is that the ANPR, automatic number plate recognition, is what they work on. That's how they track the and they know who it is, And if we can give that, so there's a purpose on it. There's a strong body of opinion across all sorts of people in the village that it's worth looking at and doing. So bringing it all together, SIDS is the sort of main priority, and that relates back to the different speeding and parking and safety aspects of Voices, I think. We need to get that going because there's only so many times that we can knock on Mike and your door Let's get that piece in place. Meanwhile, we'll gather the information and look at that, early in the new year.
Yes.
That's the suggestion.
Yes.
That's quite a good point, because I think at Reading Street, just down at Ponsey, I think they've got CCTV on the pumping station there. Now, that probably means they've got CCTV on the pumping station down at Blackwall. And I don't know whether we've asked the water board whether they would have picked up the
I don't think they have.
Interesting point. Actually, if it was a frequent fly tipping site, you might have put just another camera connected up with it,
Yeah.
and piggyback.
It's worth thinking of a way of asking them, isn't it? Because they might have just picked it up. Anyway.
All right, leave you with that one.
Yes,
Paul.
no, I will.
So we move on.
Could I just say that, some of you will have noticed that I'm on next door now, because Jeremy thought it would be a good idea if I was as clerk, so that's...
You now live in the village.
I live in the...
It's very visible.
We saw it said Yvonne from Wittersham.
I should add that when I thought there'd be a workaround, but I looked through the help files on Nextdoor and there wasn't anything. It kept making it clear you had to live in Wittersham, but I found a way of contacting them and did, with an email saying that we needed it, and they were back within an hour or two on the email saying really very keen to help. Can you possibly locate her in the village hall, in which case tell me where it is and I'll make sure it's all verified.
That's a good idea.
And they were first class. So we now have one resident, as long as I don't have to pay council tax, one resident in the village hall.
The village hall committee know about it.
There's a caravan. You could put in a caravan in the car park.
Actually, you've been a bit slow here, George. You could probably have a waste bin outside now and not have to pay for it. Okay, the forward task list then, an update on where we got to last time when we went through it. There's a few removed. The registering of land holdings. My feeling is that Whitehead Monkton haven't really covered themselves in glory on conveying the cemetery for various reasons, but they don't, they couldn't get the billing straight and they couldn't this and they couldn't that. I made a cold call to Harrington's simply because they seem to be the most substantive firm in Rye, which obviously is handy for Yvonne. And I left a message, and the property partner was chasing me for the next 2 days to find out what on earth I was interested in. And I did eventually have quite a useful call with her. But by that point, the flyer had come in from Invicta Law, which Yvonne showed me the night that I was failing to get the call from Harrington's. Now, Invicta Law, so far as I can make out, is the outplaced lawyers from KCC. Thank you very much, Roger. Valerie.
Thank you.
So the outplaced lawyers from KCC have been pushed out to run their own business, probably with a core bit of work from Kent. They obviously are council type people, which brings its strengths and its weaknesses, I suspect. They're probably a lot slower than commercial solicitors. So, I mean, not necessarily slower to do it, but maybe slower in terms of how long they spend. On the other hand, they will understand things like Local Government Act and all that very well. They'll be public law minded, which is an issue for us. They're also offering us £90 an hour, which, so long as the hours are right, is exceptionally good value. In exchange for we've got it on the agenda later, but there's a retainer each year. So right now, as far as registering the land holdings is concerned, I think we've got two possibilities. One is to say, well, if we decide later on the agenda to go for Invicta Law, then that's a possibility. On the other hand, Harrington's have said they would do it for fixed prices. Anything like that is fixed price business. And they would, of course, be much more familiar with conveyancing as a commercial solicitor than Kent were. So that's where we are on registering land holdings. We've got two possible ways to go. I don't think Whitehead Monkton is the I assumed always it would be the choice. I don't think it is now, my personal view. Don't know if other people have
Follow your lead.
Okay, right, we'll get to Invicta later. Now here I've obviously contradicted myself, and I've got a little note that the triangle sign has been painted.
Yes.
So I got it right that time. That was in the task
Well,
list.
it's the village sign, just not
Yes.
the village green sign.
Exactly. In fact, it was a village grey sign.
It was,
It
but
was
it's
just a
now a
spelling
village silver
mistake.
sign.
Okay, so that's the task list, the things that we could update. The rest of them are as they were last time. So we then move on to archives. Now this is a new one that's been nagging me, and I've been nagging Yvonne for a bit. The documentation, nagging Yvonne in the sense of saying, you know, we've got a joint worry that we've got to do something about it. I don't mean nagging Yvonne that she's at fault in any way. What we might call documentation belonging to the parish council is presently spread in at least 5 locations. The clerk holds the most recent documents at her house, and of course on 2 computers and backups of the computers. She can't hold any more at home because her home study is bursting, and it was always limited as to the amount of space she's got there. There are then old documents from before Yvonne's time, but we're going back 15 years, which is apparently how long she's been clerk this time for. I'm confusing myself. Really old documents are held by KCC in their main library in Maidstone, which is also the county archive. And Yvonne and I have been up to actually look at one old document already one time, and they found it as well, an old minute book. Now there are further older documents, as in not as old as the ones in Maidstone, but older than what Yvonne has got, which are in 2 different places, originally kept by different clerks going back into the mists of time, and they've never moved on, not least because Yvonne hasn't got the space for them. So we don't know how much is there. One lot is in a garage and one lot is in an attic, but really we shouldn't be leaving them there. They should be either, if they're ephemeral and of no interest, got shot of, or they should be moved in the direction of Maidstone for the official county archive. I mean, it's irresponsible just to leave them until they've been eaten by mice, if they haven't already been.
Do we know which attic and which garage?
Oh yes, well we know where they are.
We know we are, right?
Yeah. Now,
well, I think that we move them over to the Imperial the county archives as soon as possible.
Well, that would be a nice solution, and it might actually be okay. But the anxiety up till now has been, well, I couldn't imagine the archive being willing to accept just here you are. But in fact, Yvonne has talked to them, and they do seem to be actually very helpful and willing.
Oh, brilliant.
So Yvonne is going to go and inspect the first lot next week and see what she can find there.
I'm guessing that the stuff that is it's a filing cabinet. Now, when I was asked to do this job 15 years ago, I was told there was a 4-drawer metal filing cabinet I would be required to have, to which point I said, I don't do that job if I take that. So the filing cabinet stayed where it was, and I had all the pertinent stuff at the time, and I do still have it. I mean, it was a small 2-drawer wooden filing cabinet that I've got in my office that did come with a lot of stuff. So I'm imagining that this is just stuff that, I mean, I've got files of stuff that isn't really, doesn't need to go to archives.
No.
So I'm guessing that there isn't anything important there, but I think I just need to go through it so that I know in my own mind that we can ditch probably most of it.
Okay.
And as for the other place, I don't know, but that was a chairman that was holding that years ago, rather than a clerk. So I don't know what's there. So that will be more interesting.
First to decide
Exactly.
what we've got. Right.
Yes. Now and I'm guessing that there's probably isn't anything there that will need to go to archives.
But we have to go through it.
Yes, exactly. However, I do hold the burial records for the cemetery from when they started in 1890, whatever. I've got those, which, if you remember, the oldest one Judy found in church and gave to me. So that needs to go, because I've now got all the records from that onto a file, onto the computer, so that we don't need that. I've also got the minutes that go back to 1996, I think it is, because they've got them previous to that. So I've got 3 files now that obviously I don't need those ones. So it's that sort of thing that definitely needs to go.
So just to be clear, so the burial records,
Yes.
apart from the fact we used that information quite recently in our discussions on the cemetery options, there were discussions about whether or not this person we knew and whether that was still not.
Yes, I've got all that on
If
file.
somebody was researching their ancestors, are we saying that they have to knock on your door and look at your records now? Because that would be something I would expect that the archives in Maidstone would actually keep.
Yes, well yes.
That's what you're saying.
Yes, those
She's
records
saying
can
she's got a copy
go.
on the system.
I've got.
They can go.
Yeah.
You've got a copy with us.
And
I
they
think you
can,
should
I
go
beg
to
your
best
pardon.
of.
So when you
file
say
in
they
the
can
church
go, I
as
thought
well,
you
isn't
meant
it?
No, that's not got
No,
there
no.
yet.
Oh,
But
it's
it's
not
not.
gone
But
there.
it's
Okay,
yes,
right.
yeah. So so that's there.
Okay.
It's joining the stuff that she no longer needs at her place and wherever the poor drawer cabinet is.
Yeah. We'll just go through everything. Yes, you see, I asked what we needed to do to deposit them then. We would be pleased to receive the additional minute books. We currently hold minutes to 1985, so I've got them from then on, which obviously just don't really need that now. And burial records. We currently have series of burial grant receipts registers to 1986. It's not the same as I've got. And then they want to know what we want to deposit, and there's a form to fill in saying what we would like. All deposits are now agreed for a period of 20 years, after which point the depositor or their successor will need to renew the agreement with us.
Yeah, that's fine.
So,
That's standard practice.
so is that new things? It's just that I've never been asked the stuff that they're holding. I've never been asked.
Well, it says now.
Okay.
I think it's
They're running out of space.
If you are happy with the terms, then we would need the records to be brought to the centre for archiving, as unfortunately our current staffing level prevents us from collecting records, which I would never have thought they would do anyway. But I would be happy to arrange a day and time for you to bring the records if you let me know when might be convenient. The only time that I would suggest avoiding is Monday morning, as we have a team meeting scheduled then every other week. We have some parking spaces at the back of our building, and I can arrange for a parking space to be booked for you if you let me know the registration of the vehicle that you or a representative will be using.
Indeed.
So I thought that was...
It's very helpful. It does, however, express the need to have a list, so you will obviously have had to have sifted it enough to know what you have.
Oh yes, I wouldn't. That's what I'm saying.
A
Anything
random
that's in
box
that.
of stuff.
Yeah.
We got to have a record of it.
Yes.
We
No,
want to
I'm
know
not-
what we're taking.
I don't think it's going to be.
It has got to be.
Yeah.
That's why I started off saying you can't just sort of throw it. You've got to know
No.
what it is.
So at this
But I
point in
don't-
time, you don't know how much is in that forward drawer.
No, I'm going
To look,
next Tuesday to look
just
at
to
it.
look what's there.
Yeah.
Will you require some support at some stage? Is sifting out, because that's the next one. Are you going to sift it out when you go?
I'm going to see what's there and see what I can.
You see
what?
I-
Yes.
You know, 'cause
Yes, I do.
It could become quite a big job.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Because as
You
soon as
may
you
not want
take
to
the
spend
first
3
thing
weeks
out,
there all Christmas.
you take the first thing out and start reading it,
That's right.
and then half an
Yes,
hour later you're
you've
still
got-
reading
yes.
it.
Exactly.
It's like clearing your loft, isn't it? Oh, didn't I?
Okay, well we'll know more when
Yes, when
Yvonne's
I've gone
been and
and seen it.
visited it next week. The last thing, I should have said, by the way, there were 5 things. I covered 4. The 5th one, of course, is some things in the bank, some of which will be material for doing the land registry and stuff.
All right.
But the first thing which we've achieved tonight is that it's on our agenda, and we have actually got to get a grip of it before it just goes another 5 years, another 5 years. Okay. Can I just adjourn then briefly, since our PCSO has come in? Hello, Ollie, welcome.
Evening. Sorry
Thank you.
to be
No,
late again.
not at all. We're
I
very
planned on
happy to
being
see
here
you.
earlier, but nothing seems to have gone as planned today.
Very happy to see you. What would you like to tell us?
I'll keep it short and sweet. I've not got a lot for you, unfortunately, or fortunately maybe. Basically, since the beginning of last month, so beginning of October, there's been 13 crimes in the Isle of Oxley ward, that being Wittersham, Stone, Appledore and Carnarvon. Of the 13, Wittersham have sinned, I believe it was 6. Of that 6, 3 of which have actually been in relation to the sports pavilion. the sports club. Another 2 are burglary of dwellings, shed breaks, breaking into sheds, and then a further one was a criminal damage report. Just to give you a breakdown, I can give you that. I've literally just looked at it. I won't always be able to give you that breakdown, unfortunately, but that's fresh off the top as I've just looked.
How many did you say the sports club was? 2 or 3?
Three. Sports club.
Okay.
That's what we recorded. 3 at the sports club. I've had an email from someone at the sports club looking at what we can obviously do with it. We'll try and work closely with them to see what, if possible, can be done to try and prevent any further damage taking place.
Right.
Other than that, in terms of antisocial behaviour, I've had a couple of emails with regards to kids causing problems in the village. No actual, I've had emails, but no reports coming through the system, which obviously urge people to call in to report it to 101. Obviously, I don't work all the time, but colleagues of mine are at work, and they are able to come out this way and try and catch these kids in the act, and perhaps then deal with it in a better manner, rather than chasing our tails a little bit. With me trying to then work out who they are, where they're from. If we can get out in the first instance, obviously catch them in the act, it's obviously going to be much easier for myself.
All right. Very happily, serendipity, as far as the sports club is concerned, we were hearing from your neighbour here, Miriam Lewis, earlier that she had been reporting stuff on the sports club, so it may be her emails that you have had, and that she has more information for
It's not my email.
It wasn't yours.
I reported the crimes,
Yeah.
and I was absolutely disgusted at the response from Kent Police, I have to say. They promised, you were supposed to have come and seen me weeks ago. I haven't heard a thing. They talk about caught in the act. They were caught in the act. They were pursued. Their names were got. I told them I was reporting them to the police there and then. I went back and did that. Nothing happened. Reported it again. Eventually, several days later, I got a call from an officer who was extremely dismissive about the whole thing. They simply don't have the resources to deal with stuff like this. They've got to concentrate on rapes and murders. But I mean, I was very, very insistent, and he said that he was going to ask you to come and see me, and I'm still waiting. You know, when you actually do catch them in the act, they've admitted it, they're expecting to be dealt with by the police, and it doesn't happen. They're now simply laughing. These same people are carrying on. They're terrorising children in the village, and you know, nothing's been done.
Yeah, if I can answer on that, I've literally come from the office, I've read the report.
So basically, the officer who speaks to me is telling me he's going to do something which he hasn't done.
Okay, let me just finish. I've read the report, and colleagues of mine have tried contacting you regarding CCTV, and as yet no one's come back to the officer with CCTV.
Yeah, but I explained that the CCTV was probably going to be inconclusive. I explained to him that we had a problem and the system needed rebooting, so there would be unlikely to be CCTV. But if in fact the publics have actually admitted to it, that in itself is worth pursuing.
That's not something I can comment on. That's not down to me. I know that the name is on the report. I actually altered the name on the report myself because I didn't believe it was the correct name, and I have put that name forward. Now that goes off to the officer to investigate. I can't comment on what the officer has said. That's not down to me. I'm not the investigating officer. I obviously simply come out and deal with the issues. I know the name you've given. In my view, it wasn't the correct name. There's a slight variation of the name.
I said you need to come and see me because the spelling of the name might not have been correct. I could certainly have taken you to the person who knows him very well.
I know who the
person is.
Yeah.
I mean, you told me he was known to the police.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for, to identify these individuals.
Okay. All right, well now, I mean, you both understand where each of you are coming from, even if it's a slightly different place, so let's leave it to the two of you to sort that out separately, because that doesn't particularly involve us, except that obviously we as the council are interested in the objective, same one you've got, which is reducing antisocial behaviour and detecting crime and dealing with it. So other than that, you've given us the numbers. They do seem a little bit of an uptick, actually, don't they? Those 6 in Wittersham and 13 in the ward.
I haven't compared them to previous months, unfortunately. Yeah. I've literally just looked at what's...
Yeah, I think we used to hear sort of the odd 2 here and there, you know, so 13 is a bit of a...
I think perhaps, obviously, the sports club, with the rise in the crime there, that's obviously pushed your figures up, which is something that, like I say, I am looking to try and reduce.
Indeed.
I will try and work with the sports club to see what we can do.
And there was the serious break-in at the sports club a while ago. The things that Miriam has been complaining about are, on the face of it, less serious, but the trouble is, of course, that the sports club is a vulnerable location, so it's going to be a bit of a magnet for people going around and doing a bit of damage.
Yeah, of course.
And it has a knock-on effect because she's trying to run a football club.
I'm not aware of a third incident. I've only reported 2.
Right.
I've got 3 on our system.
Well, I don't know.
Okay, maybe one went in twice.
There was the one of the bicycle thrown up in the tree.
That was Coronation Field.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah. That's right.
Okay, so you want to raise a point, Paul?
Yeah, just a quick point. Jo was here earlier on, Jo Voss, and she just said that there seemed to be, it used to be, you might not be able to shed any light on this.
Okay, cool.
What she mentioned was that in the past, the supervisors went to Ashford and had the CSU briefings, and then they get back and ring around, and there was a better spreading, dissemination of information, and that doesn't seem to be happening anymore. And she said she doesn't know why. I'm not suggesting you would instantly know the answer why.
No,
I think it's worth raising that.
Yeah, cool. I mean, I personally am not part of that CSU briefing in the morning, simply from the point of view that I'm not always in the morning. I know they do still have it, and I know their supervisor, I saw him maybe 2 weeks ago, was still sat in the same office.
Yeah.
So whether perhaps he's not disseminating that out himself.
Is there someone at Ashford who's responsible overall for the CSU?
Yeah, so basically you've got the CSU sergeant, who's my sergeant, Jazz Bloomfield.
Okay.
She'll be sat in the office. Every morning they run through the overnight crime, anything that's kind of note, anything of interest, anything that we should be made aware of.
Yeah.
From that, obviously I get my tasking to come out of there.
Yeah.
So she, as my sergeant, will email me to say, this has happened in Wittersham or Woodchurch or wherever this has happened. Can you take a look if you're not already aware? So I don't know why that's not coming out from the warden point of view.
Yeah.
Because he definitely still is in the office.
It might be, if you get a chance, just to mention it to Jan.
Yeah, of course.
It might be just the docs need to be joined up again and reminded. Yeah. If you
that's fine. Yeah, I'll pass that back.
The other point was that again, it was mentioned earlier on, is that the alternative, because I reported something a few weeks back and I tried 101 and it was very busy, and the lady was very helpful and she said, could you call back in the morning, or do you want to do it online? I started doing it online, so I did that, but then subsequently to that the online system seemed to have gone offline, and I've tried it several times. I know there have been some hiccups. Do you happen to know if it's back? I mean,
I don't know.
Fair enough.
I was literally about to ask, how did you find the system? But
I found the system fine. If you're persistent, when it was working, and I got within less than 24 hours a case number or incident number, and then I got a response saying, unfortunately, due to no evidence, we can't be doing it, which I could understand that. But I was then going to publicise that in our local magazine, so people could do that as an alternative to phoning 101. But I thought I'd better just check to see if it's up and running, and it's not. And I keep going back, and the last time I went back was about a week or so ago, and it was saying this system is offline, please call. And I just didn't know whether it's obviously teething problems.
It's recently been introduced, so I guess it must be teething problems. I've not heard anything in the office.
We'll just keep. Okay, that's fine.
Okay. As far as this CSU thing is concerned, obviously we all know that you're very tight for resources among all your force. The community wardens are also pretty stretched. That's to say, Jo Voss, who you know. We do have a volunteer warden just about to get underway here who's been recruited, who lives in the village and will spend a minimum of 5 hours a week in the village. If the CSU system is working properly, it gives you an extra opportunity of having someone who is here a bit of time and can see things, can hear things, can report things, and can help you do your job. But if your team isn't making better use of those people, then obviously you're leaving yourselves a bit denuded where you could have had more help.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
And she's here, you see, she knows people, she lives here.
I genuinely don't know why the things aren't coming out to Joe as they used to, because nothing has changed in that office.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like I said, I'm not part of that meeting,
No.
so I don't know.
Maybe it's just worth you then putting the point in when you're speaking to your sergeant to say, is there a because we've had these policy changes swinging back and forth before. Yes, they do it. No, they don't. Yes, they do it. You've complained to the PCC in the past about the fact that the thing stopped, and you used to go to that crime panel and talk to the chief inspector, the liaison panel and talk to the chief inspector. It might just be a matter of giving it a little poke to see what's gone wrong, because if information comes out, then you can get more back.
Yeah,
but it's not. I know it's not your fault.
No,
but
that's fine.
Okay, good. Anyone else want to say anything while Ollie is here?
No, thank you.
So, if the two of you want to talk more about the sports club, then feel free. But we'll carry on. And thank you very much for taking the trouble to come and see us.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Right. Okay. On we go. We're on to preliminary budget outline. So we've got to resolve the budget at the December meeting. The Finance Working Party, which equals the three of us, have got to meet before then to produce a recommendation for the council to consider. The main issue on the expenditure side, which we know about, will obviously be an outline for the cemetery project and the cash forecast against which we can consider the precept. I think Yvonne will sort of update what was done last time, which was to show the expectation of cash through the piece to make sure we weren't looking likely to run out, because the cemetery project will spend more cash quickly than we're normally doing. I think we've got plenty, but we ought to at least make sure we look all right. And Yvonne, you've already asked for suggestions of anything else that should be considered for next time, so you need to email.
Yes, it was just I thought it'd be good if I had some thoughts. I mean, like the bus shelter, for instance, that's come up.
Yeah.
That's something that we need to think about.
It needs to go to January, and we need to come, make an application.
Yes, do we need to find out, that's something. And from a personal point of view, I'd put down another notice board, the one at the bottom of Forge Meads. It doesn't even lock. So as far as I'm concerned, that would make the third. We'd then have three nice notice boards.
Yeah, right.
So that was just my thought. If anyone else has got anything that they think that would like us to consider when it comes to budget setting, that's what.
Indeed. And my feeling about budgets, how different people look at them different ways. I think when I joined the council and you joined the council, we really were on our uppers. We had very little money at the end of each year. We are in a better position.
A village warden in Lee, whose view on the bus shelter was he just got on and repainted it.
That's all true. But the thing is that we didn't have much money then, and we used to have to budget very tightly and couldn't spend anything we hadn't thought of. Now we have got cash in the bank, and we've obviously got to budget in the proper way, but we can afford, with a small a as it were, we can afford to be a little bit more flexible in terms of whether everything that we want to spend within a period of 12 months has actually been specifically lined up in the budget. There will be enough to take swings.
There'll be a reserve position.
Yeah.
Right. But I think we're listening tonight about the bus shelter, etc.
Yeah.
And of course, we're then spending some money on upgrading our technology.
Yeah. Oh, there are amounts going.
That will come out of this budget, though. This year's budget will come out of the contingency fund for that.
And given that we, at the moment, Yvonne is a bit taxed. She hasn't, I don't think, succeeded yet, but she's a bit taxed with the fact that we are pushing up at the limit of government guarantee in the bank. Part of that, of course, is because of the caretaker money that swishes about. But we are not hard up at the moment. We can't afford to be too lackadaisical because the cemetery is going to take us back down again.
Yes.
But at the moment, short of the capital for the cemetery, and normal ruling position is cash positive year by year.
Yeah.
We've built up the money to spend on the cemetery within about 4 years or 5 years, really. Now, and we have taken on a new mower, we've taken on the new van. You know, we are okay. But we can still get knocked off course if something comes along and really bites us. Churchyard wall, that sort of thing. You're right.
Yeah.
But what we're not is having to suck our teeth on every tenner because we haven't got anything.
I appreciate that.
We
like
bit of rough with smooth, bit of rough and bit smooth. Yes, exactly. Okay, so that'll be helpful. Thank you. CCTV, Paul's already mentioned. We've just come to it on the agenda, so we've in effect covered that. Correspondence. Now, in Victor Law, then, the Parish Council legal scheme.
Can you start, Chair? Would you excuse me?
Of course.
10
10 o'clock news calls.
I'll let you know anything about the question.
Is the road open again, Nick?
The road through Canardi?
Yeah.
No.
That's 6 weeks, isn't it?
4 weeks.
4 weeks.
4 weeks minimum.
What's the as we've got local knowledge here? What's the way round it if you were going to Ashford?
Well, you can
We'll go to Ham Street.
Oh, you can go through to Hammer Street, can you?
No, you
Oh,
can't.
no.
go
I don't. All right, go the way I go.
Yeah, only on the bottom, going the long way around.
You can go to Woodchurch and up.
Yeah, you
Up
go
the back
via
hill,
the Royal Breeze Centre,
I had to go to Woodchurch.
and then
Someone
so then you miss the road out, come out to Canardiston,
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
it.
and then come straight
It's a
through.
nuisance, you had to go all through the woods, but there it is.
So that's 5 different routes you got.
Yes.
Do you know the
When you sign the document now.
I thought I did actually, but actually now I'm less. I got called out the other day on the Cranbrook Road.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, so did I.
I didn't know. I didn't spot it that anywhere.
I did as well.
No, I didn't.
So that's 4 weeks, is it?
You might be interested to know that road closure, total road closure, is to build a footpath
I know.
from the top to halfway down the hill at a cost of £42,000. 42.
Right.
Did you go to the KCC Highways seminar?
No, I didn't. No.
Well, it's rather interesting this because Emily complained on Keith's behalf as to how awful to the council, to the cabinet member, as to how awful it had been dealing with KCC, and the cabinet member's response was in 2 parts. Firstly, I hope we'd be better now than when you started trying to do that 2 years ago, but the real answer is you should give us the money and let us do it.
That's the answer that they've all been giving us. Yeah. I mean, there's not the self-satisfaction if you do that, is there? You know.
No, but it gets done.
Well, no quicker.
No.
Anyway, the other thing is that I wish you all a Merry Christmas, because I won't be here next month.
Oh,
I'm on holiday, so.
Hang on, where do we send the
Seychelles
invoice to?
again.
See you next year then.
Well, yeah.
It's the box she's bringing with the wine.
Yes. I have Easter wine.
It's Easter wine.
Happy Christmas, Mick. Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Thank you for all your
I
help.
suppose I'll be
Yes.
speaking to
And for the
Yeah,
grant.
I'm sure, yeah.
Yes.
And future
Bye-bye.
grants.
Okay, so in Victor Law proposal then, the 200 quid I think it is for the retainer, then as I said, it's £95 an hour, which is pretty competitive, because I would think even out here they're usually going to be on about 150 or something. And they say that they will run some seminars, we'll have to find out. But there are things coming along. One that is potentially a very irritating worry is the new general data protection regulation, which everyone's getting very excited about. It seems to me to be just a huge iceberg that's going to do no good to anybody, but we might hit it. And having someone, the world is going in the direction that the fact that we've got this far without having anything much to do with lawyers is completely foreign to my past in the PLA and probably your past in KCC as well, George and Collins. It seems to me to be a potentially, so providing they're able to do the job and they're sensible people, which I hope they are if they've worked for KCC. it's a relatively easy way of having legal advice on tap.
Yeah,
I think it's a good idea.
Three calls a year you can have without having to pay
It's
extra.
a good idea. That on GDPR, I hesitate to put my hand up here because, but I feel morally obliged to declare knowledge of it in the sense that cyber threat staff awareness training is central to the work we're doing at the moment. GDPR is something that we are very close to. A lot of time over the last few months, very aware. And I'm actually doing that for action with communities in rural Kent. I'm sitting down with Keith.
He's taking her in.
Well, I just think he needs a medal or something. Is there anything else we need to quickly talk about, by the way? No. GDPR, the key thing there is I was working with a foster care agency recently with about 60 carers, and they were very concerned about, because there is a lot of potential risk there, and any organisation should have on their risk register. What the person inside the organisation had done very clearly is mapped out the processes, and we've got processes and what have you. In fact, she stuck around the wall of the boardroom on a A1 sheet. So I said, the first thing you do is you photograph it with your iPhone, because then if you ever got an ICO inspection, they say, well, you know, you've had a breach or you've done this, what have you, what's the mitigating circumstance? You say, well, look, we've done this, we've mapped it out, we've trained the staff, we've made people aware and what have you. And that's going to be what the ICO are looking for. It is going to, I mean, there's some organisations that just kind of, please don't come after me. The potential fine is €20 million. Unless 4% of your global turnover is above that. But the charity section is going to be potentially really hit. In the last 12 months, a dozen of big names of charities have had fines to the ICO, ranging from Macmillan to Great Ormond Street through to NSPCC.
That's all their fundraising, which is a record.
Yeah, it's all about potentially to go through the roof. Because
the schools as well. I mean,
schools,
each little primary school's got to
and
set
each
up
one's
its
going to
own.
have its own data. Well, they don't all have to have data protection officers as such, but they have to have mechanisms
They've got to have someone responsible
who's trained and what have you. So, as regards the council goes, for a start, I would expect Count to take some leadership on that.
A word from John, who was having some meeting on John Rivers, who was having some meeting on GDPR, whatever it is, last week. He told me. Was that it looks as though we will all have to have an external person overseeing our arrangements and paid, and it can't be a councillor.
If you take it's unclear. I mean, the root of it is, in this country we operate legally on principles, not rules. So in other words, we've got all the principles that the ICO put together. And by the way, people say, well, if we leave Europe, we won't have rubbish. The ICO is one of the main architects of the whole European thing, so that's going to stay. What happens is they'll tell you what you should be doing, and then they say, well, how do we do it? And they say, well, it's up to you. Whereas, just out of interest, in the US, it's the exact opposite. They have rules, okay? And so it is unclear, and I've sat in probably 15 different law company briefings now on it. There is a degree of overlap, but basically, when you try and drill down, they don't know yet.
No, they don't.
And all I would say at this stage is that on the Invicta law, but I think that's a good idea to have that on tap, because we never know when someone's going to sue us or what have you. On GDPR, I think what we should do is to say, right, let's put together a sort of draft plan. I mean, I can certainly replicate what I'm doing with rural Kent. I'm meeting Keith Harrison, the chief exec, for the next 2 or 3 weeks, and even if we just have like the do's and don'ts of how to protect ourselves. One of the things that the parallel is that if you go to a hotel or an event and there's a fire policy on the back of the bedroom door, and there's what to do if a fire breaks out. What they're saying is we should do that. So if there's a cyber breach, if there's data breach, what do we do? At the moment, you've got to report any breach to the Information Commission within 72 hours. It's going to be incredibly difficult for companies and organisations. If one of our PCs gets hacked, parish council business, and there's data there, someone has to report that. Now, we are a very small group of people, all but one volunteers, and I'd rather spend half your time as volunteering anyhow. So all we need to do, I think, at this stage is kind of get a process in place, and we can have it's actually not much different from the emergency plan.
That's right.
In fact, you could argue it could be an appendix to that, and then we could say if there was something, and you never can completely fill. We could say, hey, We took every step we possibly could.
Yeah.
We trained people, made them aware. You know, we did all that bits. You know, and I think then that would be a big step towards mitigation.
But at the same time, I mean, I understand that there will be all these principles, and they will mostly be, in my personal view, somewhat overblown in our circumstances. But we have a situation where 7 of us have to have our names, addresses, phone numbers and email addresses published.
Yeah.
Everything we do here, except in closed session, has to be held in public. Anything that is written down virtually can be asked for under FOI, and at the same time we must make sure that nothing ever leaks. It is bonkers. I mean, it's just two things going in different directions.
Yeah, well, a lot of it's away. I mean, here's an example, right? And I don't want to sort of worry you sick here, but most rising thing in small and medium-sized businesses at the moment is ransomware. And that is, so it's really important that when you are vigilant with your computer, with stuff that comes in, if you ever get an attachment from somebody and you haven't, never open it. I mean, the trouble is, everyone says, yeah, that's right. The number of people who do, I was looking at someone the other day, someone said, why did 3 teachers open letters from the lottery saying they were winners? And I felt like a stooge. I said, why did 3 teachers open? And he said, I haven't got a clue, they're supposed to be intelligent, our teachers, and yet they thought they'd won the lottery. And what happens these days is not necessarily that it will freeze, it just gets planted on there, and then it infects the whole system. So organisations that you connect with, Calc is a good example, they should have it in place. KCC, I'm working with at the moment to try and do something with them there. But I think that at this stage we need to kind of maybe sort out some basic do's and don'ts, see how we can protect ourselves. It's a bit like if we were doing, you know, and then say, well, what would happen if we did get a data breach? Because if there's an email that comes out from you, we all believe it's from you.
Indeed,
but you could be hacked, and we could all be, you know.
Well, Outlook does it regularly. Outlook does it regularly.
I quite often get emails purporting to be from people I know that aren't. Quite often.
Well, you can little tips. You can hover over the.
You can.
You know, and if we just sort of document that, then if a new councillor joined or the volunteer warden or anyone connected with us, we can do that. So I think bringing it all together is 2 things. One is I agree with you on the Invicta thing, and that's worthwhile investing.
I think it too.
And secondly, I'll see what I can try and sort of transpose from what goes on in Royal Kent, and then bring it to us and change the badge.
Helpful. And you will, when we have to get into it, you will obviously be able to give us a lot of guidance.
It's May the 28th. I mean, I mentioned it the other day for a few weeks ago. If you've got Wi-Fi in your house, there's a password on your router. Most people never do change the password. What they don't realise is those passwords get reissued every few months to somebody else in the country, and it's dead easy to hack a router. So I changed the password at home and got so much flack from my family because I made it so complicated.
Then you forget it and then you're already stuck.
40% of people in this country have smartphones, don't password protect them. It's anyhow, but it's
only the phones. It's only the phones that are smart. That's why.
Okay.
Human error is the biggest.
Okay. As far as the Invicta law is concerned, then can I just have a proposer and a seconder? Colin proposed, George seconded. Everyone happy?
Yes.
So we're going to take that up. Thank you. Good.
So they don't find us 22 million
euros. 20 million euros. That's the max.
That's more than £22 million.
Right. Calc Awards, do we want to enter this year again?
Don't know. What is it? Have we entered before?
Yes. Yeah, the Calc Award is what went the first year to Judy, second year to Roger, and third year to John Rivers.
Oh, right, okay.
It's a community award. What we've done in the past is to put a piece in the Outlook and ask for nominations.
Yes, then.
So what would qualify that?
People for doing good.
Yes.
I think Judy was nominated because of all the things that she started up in the village. Then Roger for voices,
and what have you,
and John for the things that he's done. You know, first responder, DFib, film club.
Yeah. I mean, one person I just happened to watch the.
Let's talk about names after we've turned the microphone off.
So yes, we want to do it. Is it?
Yeah,
Yes.
good. Okay, fine. Thank you. We'll once we go into the closed session, which we've got to do anyway for the staff matters, we can tag that on
Good
the
idea.
end. Kent Men of the Trees competition. Just a thought I had this time when I read it. We didn't win a prize of a tree this year, but I thought the report was quite interesting. And
Excellent.
indeed, and it just struck me this time that
Sorry, what's that?
It was good.
in the past,
Highly
each year,
commended certificate.
each year we've had the report, and we don't really go on and say, okay, what have we got to do about that? You know, where are the tips? We might, if a tree's got knocked over, we might do something, we plant the one we're given, but we don't say, okay, here are the things, what can we do? So can I suggest that we next time maybe, or next time's budget, maybe in January, we seek to have a look at the report properly and see what advice we can get from Phil as to what we
I
should
was
do.
going to suggest, rather than just what can we not speed things up, but we've got a great report there. The person who is going to be our champion is going to be Phil Wilcox. Can't we at this meeting say, let's put the report to Phil
and ask him to make recommendations.
And as a council,
You have done.
He has a copy.
No, but what I was going to say was, as a council, formally ask him, right, to investigate and come back with his views, and you know, what do we do? Say over the next, what's the 3-year plan based on the report? Phil? You know, your advice and guidance.
That's good.
Should anything go in the outlook just to say that's happened? Not, you know, we've got
highly committed. Actually,
Well, it'd be under your
under my report.
Yes.
So I need to remember that then.
Yeah, I think it's important because I think that they need to know.
Absolutely, I completely.
He did make the point that we're planting fewer trees now than we were.
Yeah.
Yes, it was a cemetery that there was, you know, almost so many old trees. That,
Yeah, it was a very useful. I had no idea that level of detail would be there.
Actually, to be honest, this was less of a report than we've had in previous years.
But I thought
But it was quite pithy.
It was a good read.
Yeah.
It was pithy.
And there's possibly a way of connecting up with some of the school kids to get them involved with Phil. I mean, planting
Highly commended by Kent Men of the Trees.
Yes. There was just one thing that you probably saw where I put no, it doesn't. The path leads to Batesgill, where an amenity footpath gives ramblers access to the wooded area. It's private property.
Right.
It's where they've broken down the fence so that people do go in, but it isn't. Doesn't give access.
Yeah, that's how Kinder Scout got opened up.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
Who owns it? Do we know?
So what are you?
It's mallets. Because Mary has asked me what can we do to stop people doing it. Good question.
Okay, so we've considered the next step there. That's helpful. You can do that. Now the 312 bus service. You've had a long report from me on the KCC seminar last week, and you've had a shorter report from my visit yesterday to see the Tenterden Daycare Centre, which I thought was very impressive, very interesting, and she's putting you on the email.
I thought.
I had no idea a lot of that stuff went on, to be honest. I've never been there before. Now, as far as everything, the bus thing is coming in every different direction. The 312 bus will probably simply get carried on in some form by East Sussex with money from them and Kent, but the timetable may change to our detriment. I mean, it changed to our detriment 2 or 3 years ago when they did it last time. Before you came, Colin, it used to be every hour. It's now every 2 hours at best. So the 312 bus, that's that little bit of it, and there is no real substitute for a route bus because you can get on it free, and KCC at our age, and KCC, maybe not George, KC, maybe not Paul actually, the KCC pays.
I've got years to go before.
All right, okay. But all right, the older people in Wittersham, they can get on that free. If they get a community bus, it costs significant money, £7 in the case of the day centre bus. That's expensive because it's not used very much and because it's got a wheelchair lift. But we've got issues of people want to go to the surgery. You know, they can get a route bus, but not organising a group. I mean, Wheeled and Wheels, we keep being told Wheeled and Wheels is wonderful, and I learned that Wheeled and Wheels is good if you've got a group who want to hire a minibus, drive it themselves and book it in advance.
Yeah.
That won't take you to the surgery, and it won't take you to Ashford Hospital either, or Canterbury Hospital if it's the conditions that are dealt with there. So the whole bus thing is going to be, we need a solution to this bit, 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 while at the same time not being quite clear how many people are actually going to need which of them when. And I don't think there's any simple solution to it. The 312 is just an extra rock thrown in the pool with ripples about, oh dear, is it going to get worse before it gets better?
I think that it's probably time to establish some core service principles of what we want, and I think you start with the 312, right? On the grounds that unless we fight our corner on that, we'll lose it. And I think we should. I mean, the fact that the frequency gets less during the day is less important. The fact that I think we still need a service that will get people to work in the morning, either Tenterden or Rye, and get them home in the evening.
Also, the early bus for the youngsters to go to school, which there was a big fight over to get that early bus.
And I think so. We need to sort of put some sticks in the ground.
Pat Homewood goes on that to do her work in Tenterden, and she says that you're lucky to see one child on it. They say it's too early. Now, what we don't know, let me just finish this little piece. What we don't know, sorry, Paul. What we don't know, I asked Pat, and she doesn't know, and you may do, is whether they are in fact, as Yvonne suggested to me today, actually getting the bus that takes the young, this is the over 16s, getting on the bus that takes the under 16s and paying for it. Because we don't know otherwise how they get to Tenterden. Do all the parents drive them up there?
Probably.
I gave some a look. Yeah, the ones that are in the sixth form don't get a free bus. They have to be taken in.
Okay, so they're not allowed to pay for the coach, and 7:15 is too early for them to get on the bus.
Right.
Pat had no sympathy saying they could go in for the breakfast club, but they obviously don't. Because she says
that age anyway.
Parents.
It's just parents taking.
But Pat is invariably the only one who gets on the 7:15.
Yeah, she says she's actually saying she wouldn't be surprised to lose it, and she'll have to rearrange her work.
I see it every morning when I'm walking the dog, and there's one person on it sometimes. 9:15, isn't it then?
Sorry,
is it 9:15?
7:15, 9:15.
Then it's too late for school.
That's too late. Yeah, too late for people to go to work.
That was why they got the 7:15 one put on.
You want one at 8 o'clock.
The reason the 7:15 is at 7:15, we were told at the time, is because when Stagecoach or Renown or whoever it was pressed, I think it was Stagecoach still, when they were pressed to put it on, they actually turned a bus relocation move into a service. So a bus that had to be taken from, let's say, the garage in Rye and taken somewhere to do a service, they said, well, we'll actually stop at the bus stops and run it as a service then.
So they'd be doing that route anyhow?
That's a waste of time.
Yes. They were then. Now Renown are going to resign. Who knows what's going to happen?
I think
it'll be for East Sussex County Council to arrange the revised timetable with whoever they can find. We have to assume they can find someone and pay them whatever.
Because isn't their contract finishing on the 25th?
They're given those 24th of December.
So do we need to kind of make a statement of need that doesn't?
We don't really know where we are. When I spoke to Jo Weatherly yesterday about it, she said that Mike did know, and in fact I heard later that Liz Thorne, the Tenterden Day Centre woman, who had met Mike at the Tenterden Day Centre AGM last Friday, which of course they didn't invite you to again, had told him there, so she knows that he did know about the 312. Jo Weatherly says that he went to a cabinet meeting yesterday with a paper on buses, but she doesn't know if it included the 312. My guess, and that's all it is, will be that it is the Kent regulated buses being revised, the same as East Sussex are doing, and therefore because East Sussex does 312, they probably don't have it on there. But until we find out, we don't know.
But what I'm saying is that if we wait to react to an outcome of termination, I think we need to start to be proactive and say what do we need in terms of public service, transport service over the next 3 to 5 years?
In danger of that, the evidence is that nobody actually much uses them.
Well, except that the most recent turn down on planning permission, the reason was that they don't want to encourage more cars, they want to encourage people onto public transport. That was stated in the inspector's report.
Indeed.
Well, that's completely incongruous. If you take away...
What a surprise.
No, but I do think that, so if we're saying this village doesn't need a transport service...
Really it does.
Well, that's the piece, to my mind. If someone was... The way I look at it is, if we took a blank sheet of paper, right, and we wanted to design the service that we wanted for our villagers, what would it look like? And I think that should be where we start and put forward. Now, we might end up getting 50% of our wish list, but at least we need to be proactive, because we're on this cross-border thing. I mean, to some extent, you might say, well, why doesn't Kent run it and get a subsidy from Sussex? And Sussex might be saying, well, we don't want to do it anymore. And we end up being the orphan in the middle.
Interesting information from Pat and her understanding, because she uses it, is she says it is very busy between Iden and Rye. It is extremely unbusy from everywhere north of Iden.
Right.
It's busy on a Thursday, market day.
Surely that if we ask the provider, or we tell the provider what we think, and they'll say, show us the evidence. We haven't really got any useful evidence to show them.
No.
Do we go to the provider, or do we go to Mike Hill?
No, it's Mike Hill. That's why I alerted him.
I mean, say if Mike was in this room and said, well, what sort of, forget what you've got at the moment, what would you like to have? And I think that's a reasonable question to ask. And that might be, we say we want an integrated, part council provided, part volunteer service, because we've got this very varied needs. You've got kids going to school, you've got people going to work, you've got people going to a daycare centre, you've got people going to the doctor's surgery to appointments. So actually, you've got this sort of very changeable requirement and population. And part of it is down to also the lack of use, down to lack of awareness.
So what we've got to convince them of, that if they provide it, we as a community will start to use it.
Yes, and I think when people don't use it, because
build it, they will come.
There's a bit of that.
We had on next door someone saying, "Oh, when does it go? When does it go?" People don't know about it.
Apparently, when Pat goes,
saying, look it up
when Pat goes on the
when
Pat goes on the 7:15, she has to pay, and that one way. Pat goes on the 7:15, and one way she has to pay either, she said, 240 or 280, one way to Tenterden. Otherwise, she would have her old age pass, which is what she uses to come back, and that pays about £1. It's in the region of £1, because they're not supposed to get their fare out of it, they're supposed to get their...
Does she have to pay to go, does she?
Because she's 7:15.
Before 9 o'clock.
Before 9.
Before 9:30.
9:30.
So here's my prediction: someday between now and doomsday, that will change. Right? And all things change. Sometimes, and that never used to be the case. And it changes, and then they up the age and down the age. We all live in London. All of us in this room, I suspect, will qualify for free transport.
But not until 9:30 still.
Yeah, but the point is these change. I mean, disabled people can travel at any time on a reduced rate with a disabled rail card, and their carer, they're accompanying.
But let's not tilt at windmills. The fact is that she paid. What I'm trying to get at is she pays She pays 240 or 280. We now only get £1 if she's on her old age pass when she goes the other way. We can. The thing chases its tail because at the moment there aren't enough passengers to run the buses. But if you don't run the buses, you won't have the passengers. In any event, if there are any people who need to go anywhere, if it's Ivy Lodge, Ivy Court, or if it's the school, or if it's to work, if there are two people, it may be you don't need to run a big bus, but if you're working a country on the basis of public transport, you've got to have public transport. If you don't have it, we're all finished.
Yes,
so, and unfortunately, they say it doesn't pay. Well, the point is, it pays because you move people. People need moving. But that's not the way the world works at the minute, ever since, user pays principle. The other thing you were saying was start from all the basic demands. Very hard ever to find out. The demands will go when the service is there. Because they went down from 1 hour to 2, almost certainly they lost usage because the bus simply doesn't go when they need to.
In research and marketing terms as latent demand.
Yeah, exactly.
And latent demand is defined where people either don't have the money or the facilities aren't there for them to use. So if there isn't a bus, it's difficult to use it.
Yeah.
You know,
They would if.
yeah. And it's a sort of bit of a chicken and egg situation. I think the other thing is about in the future multi-use services. So, you know, as I said, getting to work, getting to school, getting to doctor's appointments, transporting disabled people, doing, you know, if you're going to have something, they need to think outside of the sort of rather narrow confines of the past. The question is, what do we want to do about it? Do we want to contribute to that discussion, or just
have it done to us?
Have it done
well,
to
at the
us?
moment, as far as I can see, the 312 bus is going to be decided above our heads, like it or not. Kent will hopefully stand up for us, and East Sussex will decide what they want to do. I think Kent probably put some money into it, so they have a bit of sway. We may find, as they've warned us, that the 6-something bus from Tenterden is going to get earlier. Well, they said change, I assume earlier. Interestingly, they said that the late one from Rye will not change, which is coming back to this business about the Iden thing. The rest of it, because it all comes from Voices as well, they wanted to know about community buses, and John used to always be going on about Wheeled and Wheels. It seems to me Wheeled and Wheels isn't terribly relevant for most purposes, because they can take the horticultural club to Bedgebury to see the Arboretum, but they can't take someone to the hospital. Judy has been keen for some while, but then holding back about trying to do an organisation that would provide volunteers to take people to the doctors and the hospital, because that's what we heard from, not Robertsbridge, but some name like that. Rotherfield told us all about that. And then you've got the day centre possibly going to start running things, but they're going to be mostly in the middle of the day when they've got their buses idle. They may bring in another bus without a wheelchair lift or two, which can do other services. But again, you're not going to put a 16, 17-seater on to take somebody to Ashford for the hospital. It has to be a volunteer who will take them in the car and wait 2 hours until they've seen the consultant. And so it's all these little packages.
That's going to take some organising.
It is, but other places have done it.
Do.
Bridge, which is a little village outside Canterbury, does it.
I mean, just hypothetically, why don't we just buy our own village or Isle of Oxley minibus? Which some people do.
Oh, indeed, you could.
Some villages do.
You could, and there is money available in places.
All organisations do.
You're not buying these days, you lease.
Indeed. But okay, have a bus. Do you use that bus then to take someone up and down to Tenterden for the surgery, when ideally they'd be on the 312 anyway?
Well, if 312 doesn't exist anymore,
indeed, if it doesn't,
it's going to be difficult to be on it.
We may have to start doing that, but in that case, we'd probably try and tie in with, if we wanted a minibus, probably tie in with Tenterden Daycare Centre, because they've already got the infrastructure, they've got the insurance, they've got the paid drivers, they've got the Section 19 licence. By the way, Section 19 licence, Schedule 19 licence issue is, as she told me yesterday, it's in the note, you need a D1 to drive a minibus. I have got a D1.
So
have you. But my D1 runs out on the 18th of March next year when I'm 70, unless I get the doctor to...
You're not that old, Jeremy.
It has been minuted. It's okay.
Unless I get the doctor to agree on a yearly basis.
Well, I'm sure we know people who know people.
The other side of it is that anyone who didn't have their licence by 97, they don't have it, and they have to spend, I think, nearly £1,000 to get it. So, as Liz said yesterday, the people who've got a free D1 are getting squeezed from both ends, and that means that volunteer drivers, Wheeled and Wheels works with volunteers, they're going to disappear in the next 15 years because no one, as a volunteer, will go and spend £1,000 getting a D1 licence.
Well, I think you're right, and that'll probably change. These things always change. I mean, I think that if we could attract people in who got their licences after 1997 onto the parish council, we'd be dancing with joy. I seriously think that one solution at some stage might be some form of community minibus. It's not that radical, and then you build an awareness, and then you call for volunteers, and it takes on a character of itself, and people can hire it. You know, right now there's nothing to take you into Rye in the evening or Tenton in the evening. You know, people have to be a bit inventive about getting sponsorship.
Well, Pat's gang make a habit of hiring the Rye community transport minibus. They know the woman who drives it. Oh, right. Well, Rye comes to the village.
Yeah, it does.
They take kids to Homewood.
Yeah.
They take kids from Rye to Homewood, apparently.
Yeah.
So they hire that, and they get it at a certain rate.
It wasn't that long ago when you could get by bus from Stone to Rye on a Thursday, but you couldn't get back till Saturday.
That was some party.
That was carefully planned.
So that was the away day. Package scuppered.
Is that the stagecoach?
Well, the horses are tired.
Supposed to be a
They're on a
great
hill.
Okay, all right. We've talked around the bus. I don't think there's a solution today, but I take Paul's point. Maybe we should be adventurous, but right now I think we're waiting for developments.
I suspect that it's the thin end of the wedge, and if we don't, I suspect that it might just take. Of course, the problem then is that I can just see the exchange of comments on social media that it's why didn't the parish council do anything? It's their responsibility to provide a bus.
Well, all true. You could say they didn't get on the bus, of course. We may have missed it, but they didn't get on it.
But you know what it's like. People will.
They will. They'll always complain at someone else.
It's a bit like if I had a pound for every one who claims to use the gym equipment every day, I'd be a very rich person.
True.
I think it'd be a very positive move for any developer moving into Wittersham.
Yeah.
No transport.
Perhaps that's the way.
Sure. So we may need to make sure we haven't got any. You mean?
I'm just making
the estate.
Yes. Okay. One thing is that if the 312 does fall over to a serious degree, it actually encourages the day centre to come in this direction.
Yes, I appreciate that.
Because they have got to chase actual fares. They're too small to not do it. She's got 70,000 of grant going begging in April. She may get a bit of it back through this arrangement if they get their contract.
Newspaper headline though, Isle of Oxley officially now cut off.
Finally, yes. Big cheers.
That's drawn. I got the drawbridge off.
Okay, let's move on. So, Lloyds Bank updating of terms and conditions.
Yep. Just notification of that, and I've got a couple of others that just for notification.
Okay.
Receipt from British Legion for our donation, and same victim support. Thank you for.
Okay.
Well, that was the. Thank you.
We've got to agree to reimburse John Rivers for renewal of the Voices website, which we agreed.
Yes.
Working party report, caretaker. Have we got anything on that?
Yes. Let me just come down a bit. The village sign been repainted.
Well, yes, indeed. We better mention that.
Is that the green sign or the white sign?
The grey one.
The grey sign. Sorry.
Was grey now. Yes, so it's made up. Yes.
Good job.
Yes, he has. And new notice board is now there. Well, you must have seen it. But
I saw him when he was doing it. He was
swearing a bit.
It was funny. Quite hard to get the old poles out.
Yeah, the concrete. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, apparently as he lifted the pole out, it was full of water, and he went like that.
Covered in and all that. It must have crammed his day.
The shower as well. I was ready for George's.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's what I got.
Right.
And I must say, made a very good job of the War Memorial area.
Yeah. Oh yes, true. True. Okay.
Might you bring to his attention that the Moon Screen Junction, the something slipped down to the bottom again.
Oh, it slipped again, is it?
I think it's the neighbourhood watch thing. It's on the ground.
Okay, I'll do that.
I do every now and again. He's probably got a better style than I thought.
Okay. Next thing is the transaction statement, including the caretaker's one. Does anyone have any queries on that, or can I sign that?
Standard to me.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There you go. And then we've got the half-year Look, that's yours.
Yeah.
The half-year budget for the caretaker, which is the budget is for the full year, and
on the face of it, it's not very good.
all,
You think,
it's all odd, but
we haven't got much
there are
money,
reasons.
but yes, we haven't. The money is now actually, and I've got the 19,000 from KCC.
Oh, good.
Is that on this one here where it says nothing? It should be
Yes,
nothing.
but it's in November.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's come in. I haven't transferred over our money. KCC should be coming in. They've given me a order number. Warehorn, we've had £50, but that was for the clearing of the ditch by the church that we get. Before now, it's come from the Friends of St Michael's Church, but the parish council paid it this time. But I still reckon we ought to get 300 on top of that. Canardington, I had an email to say that they wouldn't be able to give us anything this year because, as you've heard, they've had to spend, was it 42,000 on a footpath, so they won't have 500 spare to give us this year.
That
They're
large
very
amount
sorry.
of money, just to clarify, they don't have a great precept. That is because a big solar farm has been built on a bit of Keith Ashby's land, and the developer had to cough about 40,000 or similar. So they decided to spend that on this footpath to the bus stop.
Now, a big solar farm. That's an interesting idea, isn't it? If you can get 40
Coronation
grand
Field,
out
I
of it.
reckon, perfect.
Well, just one side.
So if the developer paid for it, why can't they go as the money they owe, isn't it?
Good question.
They said they couldn't give it to us because they'd paid for the footpath. You just said the developer paid for it.
I don't think they got all of it.
Okay.
But they did get a large lump of it, and I presume they've also spent money on getting their contractor sorted out and their planning
I
permission.
assume there's less verge to look
But
after.
Emily Neighbour had a word with me at the transport seminar and said they would, with regret, they wouldn't be offering us the money this year.
Are we, with regret, not offering the services of the caretaker?
No, we're obliged to give the caretaker service to them because they were never obliged to give us any money. They always have done. Yeah. Now, that was only because we went and appealed for it, and they've always been quite good. It started at less than 500. It went up to 500 after a couple of years.
Is it worth Emily being the parish clerk?
Yes.
Okay. I think it might be worth at least considering a written request from the chairman for the money.
She explained what the problem was, and I've already said we understand.
I did the same when she told me at the seminar. She said we can't pay the 500.
Then I completely withdraw that.
No, we have no commitment.
Yes,
and she actually is the one.
I didn't realise you'd.
She is the one.
Because it came through some time ago. I'm just sort of.
She is also the one who, when Keith was first sucking his teeth, when the three of us went with John, because he was quite miserable about the caretaker scheme at the time, and she is the one as clerk who said, well, I don't see any reason why we couldn't put 200 in, we've got the money. That was the first year, and she's always been very good about it.
And she got it increased.
There didn't seem to be any point in twisting her arm up her back when she said she really didn't want to.
Does the same voluntary aspect apply to Canardington and Stone as well then?
Stone has never given
us a penny, and Warehorn were the first ones to offer us a smaller amount. We have good relations with Warehorn, partly because Alf lives there.
I'm just thinking
and Canardington is good relations now, but Stone have always been a little bit less.
Whether if we suddenly got no income from any of those things, where would that leave us with all the?
Well, we've got an awful lot of money.
I guess the argument is we get the income from ABC.
Yeah.
In the allocation.
ABC pay us to do what we have to do.
Fine. Okay.
So so we're talking about £800 missing.
Yeah.
Not missing. Sorry. We're not.
Well, we may still get the Warehorn, but we haven't got it at the minute.
What you have to think is that I haven't actually. We're 6 months in, and I've only had £50 in towards our money. But if you look, I've still got, I don't think what caretakers, I've still got £1,000 that I haven't spent. So we're 6 months into the year, and I haven't used any of the money that we're due in for that year.
Okay. Right.
So that was one reason why I said to Emily that I didn't see that we
essentially the caretaker scheme carries its own reserves. and it has got some cash reserves, which it needs because we could have equipment failures.
Yeah. Well, we have had it in the past. The mower,
Indeed.
the van.
Indeed.
And you see that will. It's the caretaker scheme that will be able to pay for the hedge and the green Coronation Field. It's not
So
coming
we'll
out of the
benefit from
PC.
that, Yeah.
Okay.
Because that's
That
why we
will
put our 4,000
cover
in.
Okay, fine.
Stuff.
So
Okay.
that we can.
Leave well alone.
Yes, so if you
So
just
that's
look
that.
at the
Good.
budget, the figures itself,
Yeah.
you know, halfway we're through with.
Okay.
No, you've convinced me.
All right. Good.
I did make my thought. I put an amount in the budget for employers' NI. Stupid, really, because we don't pay it.
No.
We get the small employers' allowance or something it's called,
Okay.
which it gets taken off and then gets sort of refunded
We'll put that
in the
into
amount.
What
So.
are we calling it? The hedge fund. That's a very good idea.
The road tax service, the road tax and the insurance for the van would normally have come out in May, but when we brought the new van, that was in March, so it will come in later. So that's why we're not down there.
Okay. Good stuff.
Otherwise, it's
I don't suppose
fuel.
there's anything that we don't really want to pay that we can.
Can't see anything on there.
You see, fuel, we're well under with fuel as well.
Okay.
Gang mowing and the Robert Pudam we might go over with, because he's just asked me whether, he said grass looks like it needs cutting, do you mind if I do it? Because before, when we used to have Robert, it was so many cuts, and I've just gone back to him and said, no, we work on the principle, if it needs cutting, you cut it. So that
It does look quite long.
yes.
Well, it's all grown again.
Yes.
It doesn't ever stop growing now.
It's growing. Yep.
Yes, so
It's a hard winter.
that's the way it looks.
Okay, let's move on. I was hoping to finish by 10.
Yeah.
So
Go on. You got something else to say?
No.
Good. Oh, sorry.
Planning. We've had a decision on spinners in Poplar Road, granted. I'm a bit annoyed about the appeal, not surprised probably, but annoyed about the beaches dismissed.
Oh.
You know, this is another situation where we keep having this, we've got to build houses, Oh no, we can't have a house there because, as Paul pointed out earlier, it's not on a bus route. But we can't have a bus because there's nobody uses it because there isn't a house there. And besides which, a house there is hardly going to use the bus most of the time, is it?
No.
You know, it's not going to be.
No,
It is crazy.
There were no objections from the neighbours.
No.
There aren't any neighbours.
Everybody.
Happy, weren't they?
The inspector actually said it's an isolated site when it's right next door to a house 3 times the size.
There used to be a dwelling
That's
on
what
it.
you
You
said.
told us. It is utterly ludicrous.
It's an odd decision.
Oh, they're all the time. Ludicrous.
No
It's an odd
consistency.
decision. And were they
No
was there
idea.
correspondence with?
No,
No.
there was no objection. I mean, there was no negative input received on the application at all. It's really weird. It's just someone had just, and I mean, the first guy, I think it wasn't, the facts came out, except we know he didn't. Okay, he claimed and that was the porky pie, and that's happened before, right? Oh, sorry, I should be. Anyhow, allegedly. And then the planning inspector, he did go out there, and but you read through it, and it just doesn't make sense. It's like it's dislocated from all
I read
the
it
other
twice and
planning.
I thought something isn't quite straightforward.
And it's completely out of
They are anti, as a general rule. They don't like houses popping up in the countryside like measles, and as a general rule that might be true. But on the one hand, if they want houses, they've got to go somewhere. And on the other hand, if it's right next door to a bigger house, you can't say that it's in a exposed, isolated position and all the rest of it.
And it was improving the site. That was the whole issue.
Well,
And he actually dismissed, as you pointed out, the parish council. He said something like, the parish council has said that it will improve the site, but that can't be held to overrule the fact that I've got much better reasons for turning it down.
That's the way you're,
AONB.
AONB again,
well, it's a little bit comparable to that application that my son put in down the road here, and I mean the planners.
Where you're declaring an interest, you've been.
Am I not allowed to discuss that?
Of course you can. No, of course you can.
No.
We're not deciding it.
No, the odd thing was that the planners were very keen And the reason that he withdrew it was because of the access not being seen to be adequate by highways. It was a totally different concept. But if highways had supported it, then planners said they would have put it through.
Yeah, because it's economics. Yeah. Let's get on to the no objections raised on the trees.
Yes. If you will notice it, the notice that came to me said Tile House Host. So I went back to Phil Cook and said, you mean Tile House Farm? And he goes, oh yes, I'll get it changed.
Within there, but it wasn't.
So that's why I put the question mark, but I have got it corrected. And I've had more in.
All right.
So I'll let you have these for your list. When the foam mast was withdrawn, I let everybody know, but it didn't actually come through because it was August, so I've now minuted that would now come under. The Holiday Cottage, Kingsgate Farm, lawful development certificate, existing use of the property as a residential dwelling in breach of condition restricting occupation to use as a holiday let. Guess what? They are saying it's certified as lawful. So that can
and that's where we put in a narrative response.
The Spinneys, increase in ridge height, front facing dormer windows, etc. granted, and 1, 2 and 3 Forge Meads have all been granted. So
good.
There you go.
Yeah, good. You're doing a cracking job of bloke on the Spinneys, I must say. We're given the fact to see it.
Isn't it good?
It looks really, really good.
That's
Pretty quick now.
really good.
Okay, highways working party.
I've got nothing really. They patched stuff up and what have you. They've been out with the spray can in Peony Quarter, so they've identified it. But it's been quite a long time. It's beginning to wear off.
All right, we'll do.
The paint, and I don't know whether highways also includes the War Memorial area leakage of the water, but that seems to have stopped.
That's Can I just 8th of November, the Spinneys was decided, and you say that.
It's all done and finished, isn't it, the work on the Spinneys?
Yeah, that went in ages ago, that planning application.
Oh, it went, but it's only been decided 8th of November, and you say they've been working on it.
Oh, yeah.
It's finished, isn't it?
Finished, yeah.
Well, I thought it looked different, but
they started work on that 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah.
well,
Soon after,
they've
soon after
only
it
just
came
been given
before
permission.
Wow.
There we are. Fair enough.
Right. Yes. Highways. Okay.
I assumed it had gone through before.
The leak.
Yes. The leak. Was the pipe water, southeast water. A section about that they took out, replaced, and it's because of the age of the pipe that it cracks and it seeps through. So how much more within that we just wait. And
just moves it along.
And they did that, and obviously while they had the lights there and they worked overnight, it was the fire hydrant valve that they replaced when I reported that as leaking again. So they've done those two.
I was amazed to see them overnight. I came back down and
It was after the film night when we walked down.
It was later when I came to.
Yeah, still.
Indeed.
Yeah. Right, that's that. The resurfacing where they haven't actually white lined it, they've white lined down at the Small Hyde bend, but haven't white lined or put cat's eyes back in either of the sections. So I've reported that, and I've had a note back from Darren, our highways bloke, to say that he's passed my email to the resurfacing team to follow up and arrange for these to be done.
Good. Public rights of way.
The stile into Combe Wood has been damaged.
Oh yes.
And I've reported it. I mean, half of me thinks, yes, I think it's actually been vandalised, because we've heard that Phil, not Wilcox, is it the other chap, the policeman, is he a Phil?
Oh, Smith.
It's Phil Smith, yes, has noticed that they are damaging trees in woods. So whether they've done that as well, but it looks it's a clean split. Somebody's gone right down with an axe on it. So I've reported that.
Okay. Open spaces. Well, we've got the boulder, of course, that we've talked about. Pat Homewood was reporting to me the other day that various people were whinging at her on the estate about what on earth was it for, and it was a waste of the council's money, and she's pointed out the council haven't spent any money on it. And she's also pointed out to them, she tells me, that it's only because of that designation that they haven't got houses on it, which is true, of course. Pat is so pleased by it that she's actually given 10 quid to the flowers for Mavis. Cemetery and churchyard?
The only thing I do have on that, where it's to do with the proposed extension, I've chased up Kaylee Ireland, our solicitor on it. Did that some time ago. Her colleague was away on leave, so I've said today, we've got a meeting tonight, can you update me? Nothing. So this is on the transfer and where we are with that. Okay. And I also, while Greenleaf Tree Care were up, whenever it was I saw them last Friday, 8:30, I was here last Friday morning. I took them down to the cemetery and asked them about the 4 trees that we're going to have to take out, and asked whether they, could give me a quote for that while they were there. And just to let you know that they have come back with 1,250 to take out the trees. So that's 225 per tree. They say 4 trees as marked at boundary fence line at cemetery to be reduced to ground level, and all arisings chipped and removed from site for disposal of. Access from the orchard site would be needed, but we have full 4x4 machinery. But that's okay because we're already going for when whoever digs it out. And then we talked about whether the roots would be taken out or stump ground. And I said that we weren't going to be digging down for a path. So they said that if they stump grind it to approximately 8 inches below ground level, and then we can, so that won't disturb the ground, so it won't. So that's just to let you know. So this I will add to my quotes for my cemetery file, but I thought while I was there, just to give us an idea. But what he did say was the sooner we got on with it, the better, because of the ground. Yeah. But of course we can't do anything, and then we need planning permission, and I can't do that until I've got the transfer. So we're a bit.
Why do we need planning? Are we in conservation?
We need planning permission. Yes, change of use.
Oh, sorry, no, you're talking about the cemetery, not the trees. Okay.
You don't need to wait for the planning application, do you? You can put in the planning, or would it just be insensitive to do it?
Well,
the planning application could go into any time.
No, it can't, not until I need to show that we've got the land physically, and we don't have the land.
Yes, you can.
You can provide.
Well, that's what
someone else.
That's what I.
You don't need to wait for the planning application. You could put the planning application.
Although when I asked. So that's what I was told. Anyway, okay, yeah.
It's a different certificate. You can sign to say it's yours, or you can. There's about 3. Yeah. We get so many different planning.
So I suppose if you were prospectively looking at a piece of land that you were trying to see if you could get planning for it before you bought it.
Might do, might not.
Okay. Right.
If the time is on the essence, then
Arguably, of course, we do own the land because, based on what Mary has told us, they've signed the transfer. The transfer has not been registered.
Personally, I don't think there's anything to stop you putting in the planning application.
I think Alan's right. I think we go for it. Yeah.
So in that case,
presumably that comes before the parish council, does it?
Yes, I would do, of course. You'd all have to leave the room.
Mariam taking the chair.
I will need a check for that. So can I have agreement that when I need to do that?
Yeah, good. We'll all confirm that you can get on with the planning application. Just need to look for which part of the certificate you can sign.
Okay.
Or indeed ask Ashford.
There's nothing. Inevitably it's going to go through now, isn't it? Yeah. So we're not going to lose the money. So I think.
Well, so long as Ashford don't turn it down.
I was going to say that would be,
yeah.
Can I just say the churchyard came up at the PCC last night with carrying on about the wall, and I did explain what the quotes are being obtained. And there's another planned clean up for probably about April time next year, just to keep on top of it.
Good.
Very successful.
Clean up. Okay. Next planning meeting to be advised. Next council meeting, remember you need to come for 7 o'clock to get your glass of wine and peanuts. And a mince pie if we're lucky. Items for information.
Right, okay, we've got the letter. Did you want to mention that. That's what we're
Yes,
putting
well,
down.
this has
that-
all moved on, of course. We got the letter
Yes.
from Roger Parker a while ago, which you've seen. I've replied to it in the terms that we agreed, and you added a few words too. He has now said that he will in fact be writing again to withdraw that position, and I will reply saying fine, okay.
And I've seen Roger.
And you'll see Roger, yes. It's a shame that it's turned out they've got completely different views of what ought to be done or what might be possible. It's not terribly surprising, really. So it hasn't gone anywhere.
I think this raises a not for now, but it does. This is on the housing piece as well.
Well, on how the village should be reconfigured.
So that's what I mean. I think that not for now, not for this year, because we just don't have time. But I think we need to take a deep breath, step back, and say, what do we do over the next 5 years? You know, we have issues, and they're national issues as well. No young people in this village can afford to buy anywhere here. No young people in this village can afford to rent here. And none of us in this room, unless someone wants to tell me otherwise, are getting any younger. But now there's a village. And I think there are many, many examples, particularly in Kent actually, where villages have actually said we've got to do something about this and come up with a plan. And I did mention this in the past, wearing my action with community in rural Kent hat, because there is a service. We pay an annual fee into it. We could take advantage. The people that run that service are, you know, they're not unlimited, but they've got fantastic knowledge and they're only very willing to help. And we haven't had anything from them for 5 years now or 6 years, and so we don't rush into it, but we ought to have that on our long-term plan. And I think we need to start with not the bit that says how many do we want to build a year on infilling or what have you. We need to. I'd like to say a vision for the future. I think that's what it needs to be, and if that's our legacy that we hand over to the next bunch of parish councillors, that we actually took some time out and thought about it, and do it in a way that almost desensitises it. That says we don't want to build 10 houses on that field or 5. You know, actually just says in principle, what we see for this village in the future is a viable community with certain services, and they might be medical services, bus routes or what have you. Paint a picture that says, you know, that's what we are saying is the vision in the future of Wittersham, you know, a viable village hall, and you know, because some of those things, and Voices actually bears it out, we are not starting from ground zero on this. A heck of a lot's gone on, but we need to kind of push the magnet out so that we can be attracted to that, and we won't succeed on a lot of things, but actually if you start to fill in some of the bits like the village caretaker and the volunteer walk, you know, in terms of moving towards that vision for the future and amenities for the people that live here, and we've got to attract new people into the village in the future, otherwise we'll be this.
Well, one of the big pieces on that,
so that's the point.
One of the big pieces of that jigsaw will be what happens to Ashford's plan. And I wouldn't rule out that it will go through. Whether it'll get built is another matter. The sports club is going to be quite important if they get their act together again. Other things, Nicholas spoke at the. I heard Nicholas speaking to 2 or 3 people at the meeting that Ashford held in the hall there. You know, I was a bit surprised to hear him saying, "Well, the real answer is we've got to move the school over to, you know, Lloyd's Green and this, that and the other," and well, it's for the birds. You know, those things really are not about to happen. I am led to believe that the school is based on a foundation anyway and probably can't move. My feeling anyway is that the only thing that school will ever do is close. I mean, I don't want it to close. I don't think it'll close soon. But the only thing that's ever likely to happen to it is it'll close before it moves. Let's put it that way.
Teaching children in 5, 10, 15, 25, that will radically change anyhow with technology and different families. I think what we need to do is to say our vision of the future is that we want a school in the village.
Oh, indeed.
You know, and we want that
I don't wish to lose it. I'm just saying.
No, I know.
The idea of saying, well, we can.
They'll survive by being part of a bigger academy and becoming satellites of Homewood in effect.
And have teachers that might move around.
Yeah, that's what they do.
Let's move to Lloyd's. That's a little bit like arranging deck chairs on the Titanic. It's not going to achieve anything. And I'm just not convinced that some of the people who said, well, we'll do this on the housing, and you know, it's just kind of a view that is just nitpicking around. It's not something, and most people won't feel either bothered or inclined or brave enough to buy into it. I said the same thing to the sports club earlier this year, which, you know, as a member of it, and I've always, you know, like a lot of people, you know, I said to a couple of them, I said, what you need to do is to desensitise, depersonalise it, just say what's the vision of the sports club in 5 years' time? You know, why can't we have something like a lot of villages, which is a 2-storey building, which has a nice balcony to look at the, you know, etc., etc. There's plenty of space there. You just then got to raise the money. But rather than sort of have this sort of infighting, and then have the umbrella of the sports club, and then in it you've got stool ball, and cricket, and football, and etc. And go to each of those organisations, say, what do you want? Get them to put their wish list forward. Then you put it together, and you might get people going, "Oh, that's a bit ambitious." Or Wittersham, we'll never get that. Oh, we tried that, or what have you. But unless you actually set the vision up there, you're never going to get people to buy into it. And actually, one of the things I've noticed, there actually is quite a lot of grant money around. It's just looking difficult to apply for it. But you've got to have a plan, because I've seen these things get turned down when people say, well, they clearly haven't thought it through, you know. And those that get through are when people have got a well-documented, itemised plan that says, our vision is to have this, and then it will be used. Or, you know. Anyhow,
okay.
Point made.
So that's the letter that you wanted.
Yes, okay, right. Next, John Rivers has offered to carry out a DFID training session if required.
Oh, yeah.
He does do it to other parish councils and villages. If you may remember, when it was put in place, he did a demonstration here for us, but he has said he's willing. So if we want to think about it, something that we can have. But perhaps in the new year, we put sort of February outlook or something. No, he's not in the village, and it's New Romney now.
New Romney.
But he's still first responder in Tenterden and the area, so he's still.
This is for like villagers.
Yes, for the village, not just for us,
that
but
machine there, but don't know how to use
exactly.
it.
So
Very good idea.
Yeah.
So he said it. So right.
All right.
So if we I'll put it on the January agenda then as to what we're going to do. Just my thanks for the new printer. Oh, it's lovely. It's just going boom, 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 and out it comes. I can even downstairs. I use this, and I can tell it to print, and it upstairs go, and there it is.
What can I say?
Brilliant.
So it costs $34.99.
So including the boom, boom, boom. Because that's a bargain.
It makes tea.
That is
Without
why,
even going near it.
that is why it goes.
Printer and tea's made all in one.
Right.
So plus, and when it came to buying it, they had a promotion on if you buy cartridges, you got a third off. So I got 2 cartridges with it as well, and which came to a total cost of £90.97. And you may remember when I got the PC last, the one that we got something went wrong with it, so we did a swap. They couldn't replace it, gave me a different one, which was cheaper. Couldn't refund, so gave me a credit. So I had a credit for £60. So I ended up paying £10.97, which I will claim back through my expenses rather than. So that's that. And just an update on the local needs housing, because I've been up there, nothing seems to be happening. So I looked on the planning portal, because if you remember they put a planning application in to move them slightly, and it says at the moment it's no decision yet. It's pending legal agreement.
Okay.
Whatever that might mean. So that's what I've got just to update you.
Right. We did have listed Village Hall, George. Where are things there?
Well, I didn't, because we did last time, and we got your AGM, so I was leaving you for next.
The AGM.
That's what I was going to leave you for next month.
7
o'clock. Okay.
And what might happen at that meeting is that I think Rita's definitely going to stand down, and I think Mick and Jeanette are as well. So out of the 6 of us,
you'll have a quorum of
there'll be 3 people left.
3. Who's the third
so
one?
So in that case, we may find
we're
looking for somewhere else to meet in December, because there'll be no one to open it and
telephone
close it
box.
Pay the.
I was saying you mean the Village Hall. I thought you meant the meeting.
No, the Village Hall.
When you said 3, though, you and the film sock man.
Me and Steve Schuriger and Howard.
Oh, and Howard, right.
Yeah, Oliver.
Okay, I think we need to going back to the prior made in the year. I think we ought to write to, and maybe do from the chair of the parish council, and that is write to every head of every society, and that includes the church, the school, the history society, the British Legion, the horticultural club, etc., saying this is the situation, we do need support, please would you put forward a nominee.
Well, they're supposed to, according to the Constitution.
People who use the village hall are supposed to be
Yes,
trustees.
every organisation is supposed to have
trustee.
Otherwise, nobody's open.
That's
and it will.
Well, is it a condition? That's the issue. Is what people say they don't. They're still allowed to use it, and they don't have a trustee. So, do you cut your nose off and spite your face and say, okay, right?
I think to start with, we should write a letter that makes the request, and then it explains that the principle of it is that every organisation nominates a trustee.
We have, to be fair, we have done that several times
No,
already.
it's not decrying any.
No,
you've now reached there's no.
Well, people only realise when it's closed. Realise.
But I think that a formal request. And the very least is what people might ignore, I suppose, but that would be just impolite, wouldn't it? I think that at the very least, the chairman of the various societies should at least respond. They could respond back saying no.
Yeah.
And I'm by the way, I'm not volunteering you, Sue, from the PCC. Please don't. But there should be something from the church on that, because the church is a user through the big breakfasts and things.
Sure. But anyway, that's just warning you of that potential. I mean, Mick and Jeanette live almost opposite, so that's why they've been involved, and they're up here continuously doing their eating out, letting people in, sorting it out. They sort the clean out, they do what they are potentially moving, but they're standing.
This thing happened once before, didn't it? And Michael Clark wrote quite a paragraph in the Outlook. Basically said if we do not get a committee, the whole will shut.
Well, Rita did that as well, but we still haven't got there. But
yeah, but he was. I mean, it was like
no, I know.
Big headlines and
I think
just forewarned, because I'm not going to be running backwards and forwards across opening it and closing it for everybody.
I think you need to do it.
Not long term, anyway.
I think it needs to come from the chairman.
Your hall will shut. Type of thing.
Well, the only anxiety about that I can do, but the only anxiety about that is that paints it into the picture of being the parish council's responsibility, and it's actually arm's length from us. We're only the custodian.
Yeah, but
we've got. I mean,
I can do it as a sort of community leader.
There's two aspects. I agree. There's two aspects that there is a connection between the parish council and the village hall. Right, so there is, and then also I think that we work very hard collectively to raise the profile of what the parish council do, and litter picking and the challenge is whether we are directly responsible. Most people out there would say it's the parish council's responsibility. It is what it is, and perception is important, and I think we need to address those and I took up with the film society and said someone's got to do it, and Steve put his hand up, and that needs to be replicated. And I just think that yes, you are the chairman, and I think that people would take more notice of that coming from it. So stick it on the headed letter paper.
All those things. I mean, yes. While I agree, though,
and have a crack at
it.
Let's see what happens on Tuesday.
Yeah. If they stand down on Tuesday, you're still going to have a period of time when there won't be people around. And despite my attempts to get Mick and Jeanette, particularly, and Rita, to set up more people as signatories, they haven't done that. So we won't
they make
be in
their
a
own
position
problems
to
as well, don't
pay
they?
any bills either. So because those three are the signatories.
And how often have you asked them, and they just
since I got on there?
They complain. They'll complain about it, but they've not done.
If they don't signatories, but how does one? Well, you're the expert in changing signatories.
Oh, we know how to do it. You just need to get a form from the bank, but it never happens. So. But anyway, there we are. I just forewarned. And we've got all new lights next door anyway. We noticed.
I saw parcels were out there.
We worked out that you'd moved them from here, because when we came in, it was so dark in here.
No, comparatively. No, they've all been replaced. They're LED lights, and they're going to have dimmers on as well.
What's that going to be?
Have these been moved off the beams?
No,
these are the same. That one is now an LED strip, as opposed to these all still being tubes. Whereas those have been all the units have been replaced next door with LED units as well.
And what will they do with the tubes here? Will they change to LEDs?
No, they're changing like that one to an LED.
Oh, well, that would be brighter there anyhow.
Yeah, they're much brighter.
Okay.
Anyway.
I've just thought of one other thing. Church carol service, that it's not every year, but most years they've had organisations reading, and I've usually read for Parish Council. Judy asked me, but I thought, we've got another reader here, so I volunteered Alan.
We can all read.
So, Alan.
Actually.
So Alan's going to read, and I shall be reading for the Walkers, and Paul will be reading for the Wittersham Film Society.
Oh, right, okay.
I understand.
I was going
Do
to
you not?
project something on the ceiling with a bouncing ball.
Okay.
So that's just the carol service. We will be represented.
Come on, we're just letting the
Are
time
we
go.
entering the nativity competition as well?
Yes,
as an
I've got. Yes, I
organisation?
put Alf onto that.
Okay. It's organisations presenting their nativity scenes.
Yep.
Yes.
Crib Festival. Yeah, we've already paid for it.
Okay.
Is that all the information?
Yes.
Okay. So I need a resolution by the nature of the sensitive of the next item to exclude the public. It's about staff matters. So can I have a proposer? George, seconder Paul. Everyone happy with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
So we can turn the microphone
Yes.
off.
Can you just hang on while I do that?
We don't want a Gordon Brown.